Hey everyone. Hey Steve, Cajun. Looks like we're a little late right now. Let me go ahead and set up my YouTube side of it so we can chat. And there that is. Come on. Doesn't want to stay small. Hey Sharon, Randy, and Greg. Go ahead and post the link. Where's the link? Ah. Hey Lee, Tim, Hannah. Like everybody's coming on. Good to see everyone. Hope. Hey Grayson. Hey Brad, Randy. Hopefully everybody had a good week in the bee yard. We got a little bit of rain here this week, which is good. We've been pretty dry. Michael and Ed and all that. Hopefully next week I will start pulling honey. This week has just been so busy in the evenings. I just have not been able to get out in the bee yard. I do have my honey house kind of set up. I got the extractor. I got to just screw it down to the pallet, and I've got the floor all covered up with rosin paper. So we are ready to go. Sharon's been bottling honey all day long. Well, that's good too. I've been doing that myself occasionally with my bottling tank. And talking about the bottling tank and all the different equipment and everything, I kind of got some pictures brought up on my computer, and hopefully we're going to be able to share them, let everybody know, show everybody what I have equipment wise. I know we've been talking about extractors and uncapping tanks and things of that nature. And all, let's see, Ed's talking about. Yeah, Tim, how are you doing down there? I heard you got like tornadoes and stuff. Hopefully that wasn't too close to home. I know that was all down through the deep south there. They had, especially in Texas, they were really tearing things up. So I thought I'd have a show and tell tonight a little bit later on with my equipment, some of the pictures I've taken, where I started with extractors as far as a small one, and then show what I have now and all that. Ed's been running 17% moisture content, which that is good. No problem with that about bottling honey at that moisture content. And all. And Carl's on here. I missed him. Drought hurt us bad. Yeah, that's kind of the way it is here as far as that goes, Carl. Have you got like some trees that's going to start popping them up there as far as blooming goes? Maybe some, can't think of linden trees or whatever. So that's what we're doing. Sure, Darren, you can come on, jump on live, no problem. Just click on the link up there in the upper corner and you can come right on. Are you out in the, hopefully out maybe in the bee yard or whatever? Lee says it's 111 degrees. Man, I don't know how you can stand it. And let's see, just figured out how to make bricks calculus. Oh, you brought the wrong device. You didn't have a moisture or water side of scale on that fractometer. And then Carl too. All right, you're going to catch some more honey, is what I guess you're saying, Carl. What'd they do, Tim? One of them swarm on you, or did they topple over? Here's, hey, Darren.
Hey.
So looks like you're in your honey house there.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm in my kitchen.
Kitchen, yeah. I see the honey behind you there.
This is it.
Yeah, that's like me. My honey house is my back porch. So what's up your way?
Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to figure out my honey house. I'm looking at some different options.
In what way? I mean, equipment or?
Well, equipment, but also I called the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture to see what my options are for doing. Like, I want to start selling retail, and
yeah, you got to get inspected.
Yeah, I have 2 dogs in a house now, new puppies. So
that's an out. Yeah, you can't have that.
So I'm investigating that whole thing of doing the honey house. And I'm hearing an echo. How do I stop that?
Well, you're on StreamYard now, and you have to go back to YouTube and turn the volume off.
Okay. Okay.
You good now?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, I was on Chester's. They were talking about that labels. You don't have to be inspected if you just sell it right out of your house, from what I gather, in Pennsylvania. But then once you go and want to retail it or sell it at a fair or whatever, then you got to have a commercial kitchen, I think. And some places rent that kind of stuff out. But by the time you do all that, is it worth it?
Yeah, no. I talked to the woman the other day, and she had said that I could get like a limited food establishment license, and all I would need would be like a home style kitchen in a shed or something like that. All I need is a sink and like running water, running hot and cold water, and then electricity. I got the generator for the electricity. I could get one of those. I think one of those, like those portable camping camping sinks that you can use. Mm-hmm. A buddy of mine has a winery, and that's how he got around that. So I think that might work. But I think I could set something up pretty simple or pretty cheap, but I just got to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm looking at different shed options and stuff like that. And
Well,
like
if you could get like a black bear building with a, I don't know, 8-foot sides on it or something, and then you have let's say a linoleum floor, your tile floor or whatever on the bottom, and that kind of thing.
I've been looking at metal sheds and just good, like Bob Walker's always talking about, like everybody talks about this, like letting your bees pay for it. And that's kind of like where I'm at. Cause by the time this whole thing's said and done anyway, it's still going to cost me, $4,000 or $5,000. So I gotta, like, that's the part I'm kind of like wrestling with. Cause I don't sell a lot of honey. Most of the honey, like now I give it away. So I gotta like change my whole mindset.
You can't do that.
I know. I got to change my whole mindset. If I'm going to go retail and everything, I want to, I got to change the way I do a lot of things. But yeah. Who did I see on here? Was it 2B Breaths? Honey was saying that like they had this dearth in Pennsylvania has hurt them pretty bad. I'm just kind of curious, like how everything else, like how everybody else in Pennsylvania, how it's affected them. Cause I think it's like this, we went 3 weeks without any rain, and that set me back pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Walter, Spence, I won't be up to VFW Sunday. I'll be at Goofy's with Danny Paisley. It's a establishment where they have friends of mine play music. Danny's on tour this weekend, so he's down with Ricky Skaggs right now on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. Let's see. Yeah, it's hard to. Have you tried to sell it out of your house now? I mean, have you built up any kind of customer base there?
Just lately. I have a lot of people from work who are asking me about it, and I started selling my comb honey, and that, like, I'm surprised how that's catching on. I think that's going to be a big seller for me, but it's mostly people from work who are asking about it now. Other people, just like friends and, family and like friends of family. And I don't really have people coming to my door, but that's right. We have a lot of issues around here with theft and stuff like that. And I don't know, I'm not real crazy about people knocking on the door asking for honey, but a lot of vandalism and stuff like that. But maybe that's just another thing I got to get over. But
where are you at in Pennsylvania? You're in what?
I am about 50 miles west of State College. I'm right up in
west. Okay, I know where you're at.
Yeah. I always say I'm from State College or in that area because that's like a landmark that everybody knows of. But I'm like 30 miles above Altoona, 50 miles west of State College. Kind of little.
You're out in the country.
I am. Yeah. Yep. I am out in the country. But I figured, I've been trying to get on this show now, on your live show, for a couple of weeks now, and I'm always out in the bee yard, and I get on late, and everybody's on, and I don't want to just jump in and.
Oh, just jump in. That's the whole fun of it.
It's hard to break the ice whenever there's 10 other guys on that everybody knows each other. But at least I finally got on.
Well, that's the one thing about our is the Friday night chat and whatever is it's a big community, and everybody, I mean, I enjoy this because I've got an average of 60 some people every Friday, 45, or let's say 50 to 60 people. And I know people from across the United States and Canada. And that's it's fun about, and all that. And I enjoy that. And then hive life is another big thing where it's kind of a huge meeting place for everybody and all that. And then Greater Baltimore here, that's Lynn and all. So she's saying hi. And then there's Brad there from up in Canada and all that. And they're all telling you glad you joined in today. Good to see you there, Brad. But so how many hives do you have and all that?
Me? Talking to me now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I only have 8 hives. I usually run between 8 and 12 hives. I'm down to 8 hives right now. Only 4 of my hives are like honey production hives. 4 of them are
Right.
struggling along. So I feel like I'm kind of taking those, like a little bit frustrated with those 4 hives. I'm kind of just getting them ramped up now just to get them through winter for next year. So I'm kind of, frustrated with that. But I want to get up to 20 or 30 hives. I've been doing this now for 10 years. So it's time for me to like kind of expand and do a little bit more with it.
Well, it's like myself and Bob and the rest of the group. I think last night, you kind of have to, you get into beekeeping, you get, let's say 2 hives, 4 hives. And then you kind of get the taste of, well, like for me, got up to where I finally got a honey crop. I'm talking a couple 5-gallon buckets worth. Then I started selling the honey, and I'm like, oh, I can make money with this, and it kind of, at least you can make enough money to buy or try to offset the expenses and things like that. And then I kept growing, and then I had a lady who was selling nukes, and at the time they were, I'm gonna say she sold enough to where she was like bringing in $5,000, which I was like, wow, So I said, okay, let's start selling nukes. I was also following Michael Palmer about being self-sustainability and not buying bees, and nukes was the answer to that. Well, I found that it's more of a partial answer, and shiver single brood. And so anyway, I started the nukes, and that way I have backup highs, more like for insurance. And then I started selling nukes, and you kind of diversified. And the last 3 years, I've been trying to do queens, which is really the key to self-sustainability. When you can raise your own queens, that pretty much cuts out everybody else that you have to go to most of the time.
Right.
And all that. Unless you're Bob. I'm just kidding. Then you still got to go to everybody else.
Yeah, it's like this year I had issues with queens, but because of a lot of weather issues. And then I was like talking to James, where the bug farmer has that heated hive, that heater system, and it's homemade. And I said, that would be, I think it was James was using it, is to heat the hive up on them cool nights and be able to make queens with the heat. There's Mr. Brad.
In honor of your queen bread. I know you get a smile out of that. Never mind.
So I mean, you've got experience, and I think you probably have been learning how to keep the darn bees alive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That was like the first 5 years of beekeeping, is keeping them alive. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you're still learning, and right. It's like there's things I learned here recently, and I'm like, why did it take me 15 years to learn this?
I've been doing this 10 years, and I feel like I'm still a beginner.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, like there's so much, like that learning curve is so steep. It's crazy. Like if you try to tell people, I have this conversation with people who, they raise horses and everything else, and I try to tell them, how hard beekeeping is, and they argue with me like it can't be as hard as horses. But I think beekeeping is tremendously.
It's throw a bale of hay to them, and they eat it, and the horse stays alive.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to see you, Darren.
Nice to meet you.
Glad you came in.
Camera to camera.
Well, I think
it's hard. It's really hard. And then you got the Varroa mites. I mean, when I started out, if you got 15 Varroa mites in a wash, it was like, no big deal. Now we're down to 1, because the science has completely changed. And now we're treating 3 times a year. And I kind of developed my own little program, which seems to be working. And, but you're constantly changing. You're constantly trying to have to learn a new skill in order to keep things going. Right. And then you get set back. And Brad knows that. He got set back this year, big time. And I mean,
it's one of those
he's
things
doing it commercially, and he still has trouble.
It's one of those things that you can learn as much or as little as you want about beekeeping, right? It's just what depth of learning you want, right? Some people, you could tell them something and tell them something and tell them something, like me, and then I don't learn until I've done it, or or I have a problem, then I go to try to find that knowledge. And then you've got the other people that study every single thing they possibly can about it. And then you got the people that just put them in the box and don't even care what happens to them, as long as they get a little bit of honey out of them, So there's all levels of knowledge that you can go. It's when I think a lot of people stop listening for the answer sometimes,
Yeah, I have a buddy who's I'll say he's a good beekeeper because he gets a good honey crop every year, but he doesn't really know anything. He just does what his neighbor tells him to do. So that's his neighbor tells him when to treat, how to treat, for mites and this and that. And he does really well at it. But if you'd ask him like the beginner questions, he doesn't, he just like doesn't know it, but he's just like managed to. It was like he's one of those beekeepers that came really easy to him.
I got a guy down the road that I told him about double screen boards back a few months ago when I was using it, right? And then he sends me a video yesterday and he built some after I started talking about it. Then yesterday he sends me a video. Oh, this kid showed me in a few minutes all I needed to know. All I need to do is shake out nurse bees onto the board, and they'll walk right up into the. I told you that 4 or 5 months ago when we were, we were talking about it. But he found some random guy that's got 35 subs on YouTube that did it, and now he's like, "Oh, okay, that's how you do it." So maybe I'm just not a good teacher in that aspect, or he's not a good listener. I think it's the second of that.
I've noticed, Bob, that that happens a lot. It happens to me, and I've seen it happen to a lot of people where very well they've been coached on that. It's just that at that particular point they weren't ready to learn that. They weren't ready to really take that in, and sometimes there's just no context, so what you're saying doesn't make any sense. And
Right.
and then at one point in their journey, they got enough context, enough experience perhaps, and then they get told the same thing for the 11th time, and
the
the light bulb goes on, and
right?
it's it happens to me all the time. It's kind of like, hey, the light 9 years, the light bulb finally went on.
And then they ask, but the problem I have with this person, this individual, he calls me every time there's an issue. And he's been keeping bees the exact same amount of time that I have. I mean, I had like maybe 4 or 5 months ahead of him. But it's like, he'll ask the same question over and over and over again. It's like, are you even listening? Do you watch any YouTube? Well, apparently,
yeah.
So,
and some mentors can do that. Some, to me, I'd say that's kind of paint by numbers, right? And I'm not a paint by numbers teacher. If you're not learning things, then I'm not really the person to be teaching you, because honestly, the way I teach people is I'll ask them more questions and I'll tell them things. Try to ask them.
Try to get them
what
thinking about
what's going on. You can see this, this, and this. So what does that mean to you? You start to think about that, and so not everybody wants to learn that.
Well,
way.
that's like
find yourself a different teacher.
Right.
That's like I would listen to guys who were grafting, and they're talking about, well, you only got so many weeks to graft. The different parameters and different things about grafting. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then once you get into it, then you understand what they've been talking about, because, you start experiencing it. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it.
Right.
Because I experienced it firsthand.
There's a course, an introductory to beekeeping course at the University of Manitoba here. Very good course. It's almost required for any beekeeper in the area to take that course. It runs through, kind of starts in the winter, and it's like Wednesday evening for 4 months or something like that. Excellent course. And I took it after my first summer of beekeeping. My wife had actually learned a lot about beekeeping before I took it up. And so she knew everything that she needed to know to kind of get me started. and she did a good job because I wintered 11 colonies outside and I didn't lose any. So she taught me what I needed to know to get that far. Then I took that course the second, like after I had kept bees for a year. And honestly, a lot of the course was review, but there was still a lot of really good stuff for me to learn. And I had awesome context for everything they were teaching because I'd seen a lot of it. I saw a laying worker colony. I saw, the developments and that they're not going to draw comb in August and all the kind of stuff that you wouldn't see if you hadn't kept bees. So that was it was really great that I had that kind of context.
Yeah, and then I'll get those ones that you can just tell by the questions. And I'm like, did you go to bee school? Because our club offers, a 6-week course through the college. And I was like, no. I said, well, then, I said, it doesn't cover everything, but at least covers the basics. And it's like, you need this. You can't learn everything off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Brad, was that course that you took, was that online or was that an actual course that you did?
No, that's in person. When COVID came by, they started doing it by Zoom and whatnot. But it was an in-person course, and it was 2016. It would have been that I took it. Very good course. Most of it is taught by Dr. Robert Curry, who is the head professor of entomology, and he's just about to retire, so I'm going to have to start to say former. And I didn't realize what the world of beekeeping was, but I started reading a lot of articles online, and articles that science articles that the science community and the researchers and the PhDs would write these things, and the number of times that I would come across R. Curry on all of these studies and papers and things, and that's Dr. Robert Curry, and what a great guy. I've gotten to know him a bit, and he taught that course, and just you don't realize who you're really dealing with until you get into the world of beekeeping a bit, and you see this guy's name everywhere on all these scientific articles. Really cool. Very smart guy.
Yeah, when you start seeing his name, then like I better start paying attention to what he's saying.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have credentials behind them.
Well, and put weight on what he says. When you see articles and a lot of his work can be backed up by other trials and whatnot. So when he tells you things, you think, yeah, well, if it maybe I think it doesn't make sense to me, or I think I have a different idea. This guy should know what he's talking about because the proof is in the pudding. He knows what he's talking about.
I got one of those.
So
go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just. I said I got one of those calls today from the local cable company. We got a swarm of bees. Yeah, can you send me a photo? I thought it was a monster when they sent it. Right. So I said, okay. The reason I asked for the picture so I know what size equipment to bring. Right? Do I need to just bring a Pro Nuke, or do I need to bring a double deep, or what? So I'm like, I need to bring a double deep, right? I said, I'll be there within an hour and a half.
Super close up?
No, it's even stupider than that. So I get home, I'm racing, right? Get my suit, get all my stuff I need, get my pole, the whole 9 yard. And I get it all in the back of the truck, and my phone rings. I pick it up. Hey, just to let you know, sorry to startle you, but I went back out there and they're gone. I said, well, you just sent me a photo. He said, oh yeah, that was from Monday. I said, Monday? He said, yeah, I got back in the office on Wednesday and they were there. I said, yeah, but today's Friday. Why are you calling me on Friday for something that you've seen on Monday? So I was like all stoked. I'm going to get this massive swarm. and nothing. But at least he did call me back and let me know before I drove all the way out there.
Hey, James.
Old McNally.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Looks like an old Irish guy right there.
Well, a semi old Irish guy. Come on, give me some benefit of the doubt here.
What's going on, man?
Frames.
Well, you're not old.
Oh, he bought him a
course.
son too. Look at him. He went uptown this time.
Oh no, I didn't buy them. I made them all. So,
Oh, did you?
oh yeah, I'm not buying anything. So, but yeah, no, I got. What do I got? I think I've only got. Well, I can tell you. 1, 2, 3. I got 400 frames left, and that's all I got left to build. So.
Wow.
But tonight, I'm cutting screen. And so I've got all my approval done there. So I'm going to be blocking bees in tonight and moving bees probably tomorrow.
What, 40 hives?
40 hives. Yep, 40 hives. So,
And then what are you bringing in the cowan behind that?
stay tuned. You'll have to see.
I'm waiting for him to say, I traded these 40 hives for this 1947 extraction line.
Well, if I did that, you knew that the extraction line would be built solid as a rock, right?
Hand crank, galvanized hand crank, 40 frame extractor.
Well, as sad as it is, that would probably still be better than what I got.
Well, Russ was asking if I had started grafting it. Yes, we have. We grafted on Wednesday, and it had a really abysmal take, and so we regrafted again yesterday. I just checked before I came in today, and I didn't do a super accurate count, but the take is far better.
Oh, good.
It appears to be. We'll wait till tomorrow to see how they draw them out a little more, so I can get a better count. But yeah, I think the take might be okay this time around.
I just grafted on Wednesday, and looks like my phone's gonna die. I just grafted on Wednesday, and I did another 48 cells, and I had 47 of them take again. So I seem to be stuck at that 47 out of 48 for some reason. Not that that's a problem, Not that that's a problem. So, you fell off the.
If I get more than 50%, I'm doing a jig.
Yeah.
I found your favorite colony out in my yard yesterday.
I saw that video. Did you squash her?
No. I'm going to tell you how this colony is. When you open it up, when you crack it, you can smell that banana pheromone as soon as you crack the box open. It's not like you get stung once and then it gets worse and worse. It's as soon as you pop it open, they start flying out. So I did take one for the team and move the whole colony and spin it around like two spaces down on my stand there. And I put a smaller colony there so the foragers would fly out and hopefully land in a good queened colony. And they're still
going to be hot though, right?
What's that?
I say those bees are still going to be hot until they go through their life cycle, right?
Yeah. So if they're flying, their life cycle is probably getting close to the end there. So,
you have way more patience than I do. I would have pinched her off.
Well, that's the thing. It was so hot and there were so many bees in my face. You could not even go through the colony. So I did that to hopefully lessen the field force. And then tomorrow, after all those bees from yesterday have got their new location there, I'll be able to go through and it'd be primarily nurse bees and I can do what I got to do to her. And it might be one of those things to where it just gets shook out and I spread the brood out amongst colonies and take the L on that one. And it frees up a piece of equipment that I need. So
There you go.
Just take some dishwashing.
I'm not doing that, man. I'm not ruining my honey with Dawn dish soap to kill a queen.
I'm gonna kill the damn hives.
I'm gonna get everything I can out of it, and then I'm gonna find her a dispatcher.
And all.
Hey, you know what? It wouldn't matter if I was using smoke on that colony because I was in another colony. I went in 2 colonies yesterday. The other colony, I opened it up. I literally added a box, went through 5 boxes, shaking every bee into the bottom box. No issues at all. The next box, you open it up. That one, it's like chaos ensues. So it doesn't matter with that hive. That came up from Florida, and it's going to go back to wherever it came from here soon with the hive tool.
Do they give you a better honey production though?
It was a Nuke that I got this year, and it was just starting to get big, and then the bigger it got, the more feisty it was getting. So
yeah,
we're just gonna chalk that one up as an L.
Squish, pinch, squash, jump on it, burn it.
Well, I got several comments on that video, and some people say I've never had one that hot before, and they say that even if I were to get a mated queen and put it in there and put her in the cage after dispatching a queen, that chances are they would ball that queen as soon as she's let out anyway. So
yeah,
give him a cell.
I can't speak to that.
Give him a cell. Let the virgin take care of your dirty work for you.
I'd let her go in there and just, well, it'd be my luck they just keep tearing down the cells.
Virgins solve a lot of problems. You stick them in there, they just take care of everything.
And then what? It's still 6 weeks before it's calmed back down, right? Well, more than that.
Of course.
But eventually it'll happen.
I had actually it was my cousin's hive. I was helping her out, and she had chickens, and then we got a queen in there, and it was hot like that. And they followed me into my truck, over on the other side of the building. She was coming out of the garage and said, "Get in there." I mean, these bees were just so aggressive. And then she had chickens in a chicken tractor, and the damn chickens were jumping up and down, and they attacked the chickens. And they actually lost, I think, 4 or 5 chickens. So that hive got the soap dish.
I was just out there, and I ran the riding lawnmower around right in front of the colonies and everything. No problem. But as soon as you crack that colony open, game on. It's
I had it open, and I had my smoker, but I'd have to get whether it went out on me or whatever. But I had to walk away. I had to get away from it. And
hey,
and
Phil,
they were mean.
I got a charge out of your moniker for my my little resource hives in the back there. I think that's what they're going to be called from now on, because I think that's a good description of exactly what they are.
What was it?
The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead.
He called them the zombie hives.
The zombie snack, yeah.
Yeah, little zombie nukes in the corner.
Speaking of those bees yesterday, they would sting and get caught in my suit, and they would literally separate their whole abdomen from their thorax, and they would just be the head and the body, and they would be crawling, and the whole ass end of them was stuck in my suit.
It's like Chucky bees or something.
Oh, it was insane.
Bob.
That's disturbing.
Chucky bees. I'm just calling them Bob's bees. That deal. Anytime
That's
I have
only
a hot hive, this will be Bob 1 and Bob 2 and Bob.
Jump in, Phil.
Hey, Bob. I gave you the step-by-step how to deal with those in the comments. I don't know if you saw it on that video.
I was just mentioning a lot of people were leaving comments on that.
Yeah, just all you have to do is move them a good distance. Go ahead and put a box back where they came from so that when they go back, they have somewhere to go into.
Right.
And then put a queen excluder underneath over a base, and then just dump them out in front of that and let the nurse bees walk back into the hive. And anything that's got brood on it, go give it to one of your weaker nukes. Don't lose that brood. Of course, they're going to be a little spicy when they grow up, but You can deal with that. And then if you don't see the queen, she'll be trapped below the excluder. She won't be able to get back in the hive. You come back about an hour later, you should be trying to get in there. You should find her pretty easy. And then take all their brood away, kill all those drones. That's really important because you don't want those things around. And then give them one frame with eggs and young brood from your gentlest hive and say, deal with it.
James would make the statement that I have no gentle hives.
Well,
you just had a couple really hot hives.
I got one. That hot hive was right on the front by where we were sitting.
Give them one from that big stack you got there. That'd be a good one.
It's
Yep.
What do you guys think?
It's good to me.
Looks pretty good.
Well, that should give them lots of airflow, eh?
Yeah.
It's supposed to
Staple
be
it
raining
in
tomorrow.
place
It's
and
supposed to
you're
be raining
done.
tomorrow, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But I think so.
Are you going to staple it, James, or are you just going to jam it in?
No, I'm going to staple it in place. So I'll put probably 3 staples on each side, and then I'm going to put a screen on the top there as well. So
Yeah. Heat index in Texas tomorrow is 120 in Central Texas.
Cool.
Ridiculous. Like 98 and about 80% humidity.
It's supposed to be 91 tomorrow here.
Well, now,
So,
James, are you just selling the bees and the frames, or you're not selling your woodenware, right?
I'm not selling my woodware. No.
So you got to transport all them over, or are they going to swap them out and bring them back to you?
Well, we haven't figured that out yet.
So you said you're
Probably
going to
swap
screen
all
the
over.
top. What, so you'll just go with a screen on the top? Is that what you're?
No, I don't have a lid here. The feeder hole that I have on the top, I was just going to put a screen on that as well. So it's supposed to be, basically, I'm going to say the first probably 8 hours. Yeah, about 8 hours. That's about 8 hours of the trip is going to be in the rain tomorrow. So
Oh, you got to drive them and deliver them too.
I was going to say,
I'm
that's a
driving
long
and
trip.
delivering
16-hour round trip.
them. No, I had never really figured it out, to be honest with you. So he'd be close to that.
I have a hard problem in my mind driving 4 hours to get frames or whatever and then drive back.
Yeah, but you don't live in Canada.
This is true.
You know, we drive 5 hours to go to Edmonton just to go shopping.
We're out
Yeah.
west.
Everything's a long ways apart here. It's like living in the Australian outback.
Is that why you always say, Brad? I had to go to town. It's like a major ordeal.
Yeah, it's a major deal. You don't just go to town for no reason.
Yeah, I know,
Price
but I
of
mean,
fuel.
how many miles are you from
Paul's used to do that.
a pretty good sized town? And you had a little village or something close by, right?
Yeah, a little village here. All it's got is a post office.
General store,
You
maybe.
know, a few houses. No, nothing. Just a post office. A tiny
Just a
post
post-
office too. It's about
That's the post
half the
office,
size of my house, quarter the size of my house.
and that's it.
That's
What
it.
else is there?
That's it. There's a trucking company in town. That's
Yeah,
all.
so you got a trucking company, a post office. You don't have
Probably a
like
gas station.
Got a
gas
church.
stations.
There's houses.
and-
All the
Nothing.
small towns have bars. There got to be a lot more bars than churches, probably.
Well, there was, but 20 years ago, the bar burned down, so it's gone. Serious, it did.
and that's it. In
Yeah,
this little village, more so. It's not even a town.
You don't they don't even have a Dollar General because that's all over the South.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah,
intersection has
yeah.
a Dollar
Up
General.
here too.
Well,
They're staying all over.
you know, and see where I live, most everything is south of me, right? So I don't go north of me very often. So when I go somewhere, I go south of me. And the big town, when I say go to town, it's 15 to 20 miles away. And there's a Walmart and Canadian
Okay,
Tire,
that's
and
a town.
just about everything you want there.
I mean, you got to drive 15 miles for Tim Hortons?
Yeah, there's 2 Tim Hortons in that town.
What's a Tim
But
Hortons?
then there's the city,
The two
which
Tim,
is
convenience store, 2 Tim Horton towns.
which is most anywhere in the city is going to be between 40 and 60 miles away, depending on where I go in the city. So that's more of a jaunt. But what I was saying about everything being south, north of me, there's a little town. It's a village, but it's got more going on there because there's a casino there, and then so across the street there's actually a grocery store, and there's a gas station and stuff. So that would be my closest gas station. If I need gas in emergency, then I just go up there, and that's, I don't know what it is, 10 miles something.
Canadian Dunkin'
Maybe not.
Donuts.
That's about 8 miles.
That's
No Tim Hortons there though. They get fried chicken. They get pretty good fried chicken at that gas station.
We got some good fried chicken at gas stations down here too, and potato wedges.
Nothing like gas station fried chicken.
So the closest is 10
That's
miles.
how Kentucky Fried Chicken started.
That's doesn't sound like much, but that is a good little ways.
I went out.
I've been in your area, Charlie, and it's all town. One town melds into the next.
As this could say, it starts, but it never ever ends.
I went and mowed my dirt for my buckwheat crop, so we'll see how that goes.
From anybody else, that would sound weird.
Well, you saw my front yard is like
Bob. It's like
primarily dirt. So I've got all this buckwheat coming in. I think I'm just going to seed my whole front yard with buckwheat, and since it's dirt, let it grow up, and then once it blooms and everything happens, and mow it back down. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
So Charlie, I did just, for distances, I did 2 deliveries today. I went to one town that's about 30 miles away, and then it's about probably 30 miles from the second town I went to make a second delivery. And then that's where I get my gas too. And then, 15 miles home again. So, it's
That's
quite a bit of driving.
30 miles is a lot.
2 deliveries. But one of the deliveries was over $400, so it was worth making the trip.
There's Alex.
Is this something new?
Hey, Alex.
I just saw Man Lake's got something called mitethol. Have you seen that? Is that new? I've not heard of that before.
Is it showing it where they're squirting it out into a strip?
No, it looks like almost like moth crystals looking, but they're in a bag, like a mesh bag. It says used for overwintering honey beehives for the control of tracheal mites. Mitethol. It says 99.94% mitethol and 6% or 0.6% inert ingredient.
Who has trachea mites?
I don't know. It's the first time I've ever seen it. It was just the ad that popped up, and I was like,
I mean, bees don't have them much anymore. I think when you're doing a lot of oxalic acid, I think that pretty much kills the trachea mites. I'm not sure, but
I just used, I think it was yesterday. Was it yesterday we put it on? A mite control product called Apple Life Var. You ever hear of that?
Yeah.
It's made of a bunch of essential oils.
Yeah, it's got the wafer stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you break
really
it up,
goofy
put a wafer in the corners
thing.
of the hives, the way it told me.
Can you use
I'm
that?
going to be using
produce it in the. They always say take it out and then cut it up, and why don't they just produce it in the size of the instead of telling me I have to cut it up, just make it in the little pieces that you're supposed to use.
How about have you did Paper Guard?
Apagard? No, not Apagard.
I've got AprilGuard I'm going to use like Bob Benning this year, Formic Pro, and oxalic acid vapor.
Yeah.
Is what I'll do.
So this, like, you read the package on this stuff, and the warnings about how to handle it, and it's like, burn your clothes when you're done, and throw it away and destroy the container when you're done. Don't save anything.
My
It's
wife,
like you're handling it's like you're handling uranium, is what that's the instructions for this. But they can't produce it in a wafer that you can just use. You have to take it out, grab it with your hands, use your scissors, cut it in two, then place it on the thing. So maximize the handling for something that's so caustic and toxic that you have to burn your clothes when you're done with it. That makes no sense to me.
they don't
What do
want to
you do
handle it
for me,
either.
bro?
It's April bar is
What's that, Darren?
it's thymol, I believe.
That's what I thought. I think it
Thymol is the largest constituent in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it stinks pretty good too.
Charlie,
And,
when do you do your Formic Pro? When do you start that? When do
Formic
you start
Pro?
your Formic Pro? Yeah.
Well, I haven't never used AprilGuard, and then that shuts the queen down quite a bit. So I'm going to try to do AprilGuard for 4 weeks, starting like mid-July, and then in August I'll do AprilGuard or AprilGuard, Formic Pro. I mean,
Hey, James. James, you here? James. Can you mute James, Charlie?
Yes, sir.
Can you mute real quick? I think whatever
there you
you're
go.
doing. Thank you. Sorry. Couldn't hear. Well,
It is, James. You can hear that
Yeah.
too?
Yeah.
I hear it.
okay, that's better. Thank you.
Sounds like a little continuous fart.
Fart in a can.
So how's
That's
everyone
exactly what
doing
it
tonight?
sounds like.
Sound like bubble wrap or something, or tape or whatever. But no, I've never used that stuff. But I know you put the wafers in the corners of the hive, and the
Yeah.
bees take it out or something like that, and it's supposed to kill the mites.
Yeah,
somehow.
they don't carry this one out. You have to take it out.
Okay.
But regardless, it's nice. It's it's an organic treatment. It's not a synthetic, and there's no waiting period. You can't use it with honey supers, but there's no waiting period. As soon as you take it off, then you can put your honey supers on.
Yeah, that's like AprilGuard is no honey supers. Well, I don't treat anything with honey supers on. But like I say, I'll be taking my honey supers off here in the next couple weeks, and or I'll have the next couple weeks. Hopefully, I'll have everything taken off, and then I'll hit them with AprilGuard. That'll be the first time I've used that. It'll be the bucket where
What's the
you.
ingredient in that?
It's
AprilGuard.
I think it's thymol. I think that's what's in there. That's the active ingredient.
Well, that's that
and,
gel stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna squirt 33 milliliters on there of grams or whatever it is, and
So
hit 'em.
that thymol is supposed to have a destructive effect on nosema.
Probably. I don't know.
There were some studies, I think, in Europe done. I read an article, a paper that was written when they did a trial on it, and they said it did actually have an effect on nosema.
Right. Bob, you see that question for you? Hope wants to know how much apis control per gallon.
Not
It
much.
is, yeah, not much at all. Per gallon is 1/8 of a teaspoon
Wow.
per
And
gallon.
it's what's it per 10 gallons? So it'd be what, 1/4?
It's 1/8 per
Well,
gallon. That'd be
8 gallons.
1 teaspoon and
8 gallons.
what?
8 gallons.
8
1
gallons is 1 teaspoon, right?
Like that small packet is 45 gallons. Right?
No, 52.
52.
gallons.
Makes 200
45
liters.
Canadian. 45 Canadian gallons, sorry.
Makes 200 liters.
Right. I know it's 200 liters. I'm trying to talk American.
Well,
Trying to talk American. Nice.
1 1/4 teaspoons, not tablespoons, teaspoons.
At 50 is 208 liters.
I didn't mean to make James mad. He left.
No, his phone said his phone was dying. I mean, I know when I do 40 gallons, I put in a tablespoon and I think a quarter teaspoon. Somewhere's in that neighborhood. It's not exact, but it's close.
How much
And
dry pollen sub do you put in your syrup, Bob?
Exactly what David Burns prescribes. Certified.
You know how much I put in?
David Burns.
This
0.
much. That's how much.
Right.
Hey Lisa, how you doing? So did James ever give an update on his prowler or his burglar or whatever? I must have.
Yeah, I
missed
was
that.
about to ask that.
No, haven't heard a thing.
Oh shoot, gotta get back on then.
So, hey, I got a interesting story. Speaking of criminality. So I'm going to service a customer today, and I see this, right? I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it's like a smoke and fire?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there's that.
and the side of the house next to it is like all melted from the heat, right? And so I went to my customer. I was like, man, there's smoke coming from that building down there, and there's not a fire truck or anybody tending to it or anything. And he says, yeah, they had a meth lab in that shed, and it blew up a few nights ago. And it was literally like 3 doors down from him. I'm like, yeah, okay, I got you. The place burnt it down because the meth lab blew up, or the meth lab blew up and burned it down. So only in South Carolina.
Hey, Phil, I seen you had a comment on that young couple. I think they're in Tennessee. In the world is the thing, but that his husband and wife are real young, and they don't know diddly squat about bees.
Happy something farm, Happy Acres or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know. I put a comment in there about a month ago. They're looking at a hive, and I'm like, you got no bees. You had a patch of brood capped, and I'm like, I told him, go back to the basics. Do you have eggs? Do you have larvae? I already know you got capped brood. And she came back and said, well, it's going to take a while for it to cap the brood. And I'm like, I was going to respond, and I'm like, forget it. It's like, you don't understand. You missed the whole concept of what I was trying to express to you.
Well, they need somebody close by to help them, because they don't
Where do they live?
They don't go Tennessee somewhere. They don't go into those bees except like once every 3 or 4 weeks. It's like, then they go in and we're really surprised that something's going wrong. So yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah,
She went
to listen.
She went to the post office to get a queen, and they almost opened up the plug side instead of the candy side. And there's smoke. You know, what gets me is they're puffing the smoke, and I'm like, there's no bees there. We don't need no smoke. You know, you got 2 frames full of bees if you got that many in there.
Yeah, I think I might have commented something about you just wasting the queen if you give it to that colony. It was a mess.
Well, they put a queen in there.
Gotta learn. We all gotta learn, right?
You guys were talking about you have to want to learn something, because my buddy Sarge just got bees, and he said he wanted to split them. So I don't have time to go way up there and do that with him. But so I tried to explain to him, you need a couple of frames of brood, a couple of frames of food, and you can just, split them even, go through the resources and split them evenly. And he doesn't really know what brood even looks like, I guess. But So then he calls me up and he goes, yeah, a friend of mine told me I don't have to do that. We just did this thing called a cowboy split. I was like, well, what's that? He said he had double deeps. He said, we just took the top box off, set it on a bottom board and put a lid on it and walked away. And I just went,
boy.
well, then he's asking me about his split. And I said, send me a picture. He said, it looks like it has good activity because bees are flying in and out.
They're robbing all that honey that's in that top box.
He said, I said, send me a picture of one of the brood frames. And let me see if I can get it on my phone. And he's thinking it's looking pretty good. Let's see if I can do this trick yet. Yeah, that's
bring it over towards you. There you go.
That's his brood frame.
There is no brood on
That's
that
a good
frame.
looking brood frame there.
That's bullet. Everything that's kept there is bullets. That's laying worker all day long. So but that's the thing is he wasn't ready. It was just too much for him to deal with. So he just found the answer he wanted from somebody else and went out and did it. So, and that's what you have to deal with when you do that. So.
But
sometimes
you know
that's
what?
the way
He
we
won't
learn.
call that buddy.
No, learn the hard way.
He's going to call you 4 more times.
That's fine. I'll talk to him about it every time. I don't mind. But yeah, it's.
I went down yesterday to this lady in the club, and she had 4 hives and a nuke, and they're all queenless as far as she was concerned. And there's this nuke. I put a queen, bought a queen, put it in there, and it's gone. It's not there. And I pulled the first frame. I said, "Well, there it is, right there. See the red dot?" And but then I put it back and I was trying to find it again. I couldn't find it. It must have been out on the wall or something, the hive. And then I said, but I says, sometimes you have to ask yourself what you don't see in this hive. And I said, there's not a pollen frame in here nowhere. And so we went through the other hives later on, and I said, there's a nice pollen frame. And I got multiple pollen frames in one of these bigger hives. I said, take these 2 pollen frames and put them on the outer side. And maybe this, like one of them had some honey in it and all that. And it wound around where they all had queens. They were all queen right. And there was one, it's queenless. Well, she had 3 medium boxes. I took the first 2 off the top because I said, you don't need any of this. It's too small. I really need a nuke. But we got down to the last hive. Now, this one she wouldn't have recognized because I went through the frame. Says, well, right there, see that one there? That's a virgin. See how she's got the abdomen and, the nice shiny spot where you mark her and all that stuff. I said, put her back in, and we put the right kind of frames in and stuff. And I said, leave her alone for 3 weeks and come back and check her. And a lot of it was,
I think for novice people is obsessing about finding the queen. You know how many queens I see regularly? Not very many.
Right.
And that's
some of these hives that I looked at, I seen brood and larvae and all the stages of brood. And I said, all right, you got a queen here. I said, that's as far we need to go.
Thing that they haven't been coached on is stop looking for the queen. I actually sometimes I'll tell novice new beekeeper when they start doing that, I'll tell them, you don't need a queen. Well, what do you mean? No, you don't need a queen. Stop trying to look for the queen. You don't need a queen. Well, what do you mean you don't need it? So you don't need, all you need in there is something laying eggs. Just to make the point, stop obsessing over finding that queen. You need something laying eggs, because even if you have a queen, if she ain't laying eggs, she's no good, right?
Right.
You need something laying eggs. So look for the eggs.
Yeah.
Stop looking for the queen.
Right.
And even that's not absolute. Last summer we had such a bad drought. I went into the colonies and I wasn't finding any brood at all. But what I noticed was there was honey stores, but there was 0 pollen. So I just put them back together, and I came back in a month, and they all had brood. That queen knew she didn't have anything to feed those, so she just quit laying and waited until it.
And the only absolutes there are that there are no absolutes, right? But so often, I'll sell a queen to sell a nuke and then days later, a week later, well, there's no queen, and then somehow they go and buy a queen, or you give them a new queen or whatever. And then 2 months later, you get this whole long story about, well, we didn't have a queen, and then we put the queen, and they killed the queen, and then the thing, and then there was a queen the whole time. Did you know that there was a whole? And I'm thinking,
Yeah, I'm sure I did that a few times in my early days. I know I traveled far to get queens, and I didn't need a queen. It's just the money that I spent
Right.
requeening. There was a queen in there the whole time.
Right.
Right.
And,
But
and
that's
it's
like
just experience.
like Phil was saying there, it's been dry here for about a month.
Right.
And I've
Sure,
been looking in my
sure.
nukes where I, have either they put virgins in or whatever. And they're all queen right, but I could tell they were slowing, it's like I'm looking about ready to put another box on top, and I'm like, there ain't enough population here for that.
Right.
And they've slowed down considerably about laying.
And that's why you ask your mentor. You call up your mentor and say, I think there's my queen died, or my queen flew away, or with the things that they say, right? And your mentor should say something. Well, what makes you think that? Well, because I don't see any. You told me to look for eggs, and I don't see any eggs in my hive. And your mentor will say, that's okay. I don't see them in my hive either. This is why.
Well,
We're in a dearth. It's been dry. There's no, all this kind of stuff. That's why you need a mentor.
I think all of my queens have shut down. I got little patches of eggs in there. It's hardly anything at all. Just
yeah, that's right. That's about where I'm at.
I had one a few weeks back that I was just going through and doing regular inspections, but it had just a smattering of capped brood in there. And I was like, oh my God. And they looked awful. And the numbers were bad. I said, yeah, they're crashing. I said, well, I had some resource hives. So I said, I'll give them some eggs and young brood and see if they'll make a queen. So then 2 weeks later, I was like, well, I need to give them another week before I check them. But I said, I was curious. So I popped it open. They had a queen, beautiful capped brood pattern. There was probably a virgin in there when I diagnosed them as, thinking they didn't have a queen. And she probably came back the next day and started laying because in 2 weeks she had full sheet of brood on one of the center frames, and they were rolling again. I had taken away their medium super and given it to another colony already, but they didn't need it anyway. But you never.
Well, it's like when I went through these hives for this, and she's close to my house, and she's in my club, and she said, I need a new mentor. I said, well, I'll come down. You're only a couple miles from my house. And so I spent that evening with her, and I said, look, another thing she was doing was she put in what do you call it? Foundationless frames. And I said, what are you doing? I always have a problem with those things, and then she put in some new frames with foundation. And I says, look, the flow is over with. They are not going to draw any of this wax out. It's done. You're done. That's it. I said, you got to give them, she has comb, but not a lot of it. And I said, take all these stupid foundationless frames out of here.
That's wrong. That's all I use is foundationless frames.
Well, not now. I mean, that's great.
Not now. Well,
not
they
in
will.
the dirt.
They will.
It's in the dirt.
Yeah. They will draw it if you put it between two brood frames. They'll
foundationless in a dirt. They're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, they're not going to do anything.
Doesn't
with
matter
it.
if there's foundation or not.
And then the thing of it was, she wanted to get some honey, and she had all mediums, and I'm used to that. That's what I run. And I said, look, you got like 6 boxes here, and I said, you need to condense them into 3. Take all this brood and put it down in the bottom 2 boxes, and put whatever you got left on the 3rd box. And she was looking for honey, I said, well, yeah, there's 3 frames of honey over here, and that's completely capped. Pull them out, and if you want some honey, there you are. And that kind of stuff. And but I says, give them something to work. I said, you got a bunch of stuff here. It's a bunch of drone comb. And I said, try to find worker comb to put down in the brood nest. Give them a nice brood nest for her to use. So hopefully she's going to do that. I just, I was looking what Lenny, I took the super off because
Yeah, I'm ready to get back.
Yeah, well, now here's Lynn. Now, see, Lynn's Greater Baltimore. She's close to me, and she's put a foundation, a super full of foundation, and for like the last 2 weeks, and they haven't done anything. And I put on the same thing on some hives that were really strong with bees. They were putting some wax up on top of the frames with some honey in it. And I'm like, okay, I'll give them space to see if they will draw out. And they're doing a little bit, but not enough to, like I say, the flow's over with for us.
So what do you guys think about, when they're in the flow? I don't really go into the brood nest because I don't figure anything that I do at that moment's not going to make any real difference, but it might be negligent.
I'm too lazy to lift all those boxes.
I think that's part of my demotivation as well. But
well, that's like these empty brood, empty.
Also, if you disrupt the brood nest, that's going to throw them off at least a day or two in their their work that they need to do. So, I'm looking for excuses, but I'm actually looking forward to getting the honey off so I can finally go in and do some real beekeeping again because I hadn't done any in a couple of months.
That's like these last boxes I put on top. I was like Brad said, it's too darn much weight, 60-some pounds per box to pull all that off to put an empty, foundation box on. I'm like, I'm putting it up top. They can do whatever they want to do with it.
You need a hive lifter.
That's right. I under-supered a few of mine, and then when I went back, I was like, why the heck did I do that? I've got to lift this other box off just to check. It's not just work when you do it. It's work to come back and see if they did anything with it.
Have you ever tried under-supering, Brad? And have you noticed any difference?
I didn't notice any difference, except it's a heck of a lot more work. And a big pain in the butt. Because you're right. You go to your out yard or you go to your bee yard, and you want to think, I wonder if they're getting that box filled and I should put another one. Okay, now you start lifting all the full boxes off to see if you can see what's in the empty one you put on the bottom. No, that's not for me, man.
So Brad, I was watching your video where you were checking all your nukes, your 6-framers, your 3x6s.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do when they really get big and you need to move them to bigger boxes? Because you got the 3. One of them's got to move some other.
Not this year. Keep them squeezed in there. They're squeezed into 6 frames for the whole summer. They'll be squeezed into 6 frames until next spring.
You don't think they'll swarm? Some of those were.
I guarantee they won't.
They won't. Okay.
No, and a couple different things. And this doesn't work in every climate, but what we get away with here is we'll put honey supers over that, so they do have a place to move up and put the honey up there. It's just that there's almost none of that in that little 6-frame box, and because the queen is a new queen, she's a new 2023 queen. They generally don't swarm, so we can keep them tight and keep them in that little box, and then that little nuke will produce some honey for this year. So they essentially kind of pay for themselves the first year, and then you take the risk of overwintering and see if they're going to make any surplus the next year. So yeah, that's kind of what we do with those. And then of course you see that equipment. The nice thing is when I go to do the supers, it's just a standard 10-frame box. A couple of those on top of the 3 of those 6-frame nukes fits perfectly. I don't need anything special for honey supers.
But you just move your base to the side and put a new one down, put 2 boxes, put 2 of the colonies in there, and then ship the 3rd one off to some other spot, or how do you do that?
Oh, when I do transfer them, like next spring, for example, it is a little. It is.
You don't ever transfer them in the middle of the year?
No. Okay. No, I'll transfer them out like when they overwinter. Okay. Then I'll transfer them out in May.
Okay.
And then I start filling them up again in May and June with queens I buy and queens I raise. But yeah, to get specific, I'll put one of my 2-way pallets directly behind it, and then I'll move the outer 2 colonies back into 10 frame equipment behind the 3-way pallet. And so there's going to be one 6-frame Nuke stuck in the middle there. And then it's less than a perfect system, because then I can either pick that up and move it to my out yard, or I just take the hit and lose some of the foragers and put it elsewhere in my yard. Usually they're strong enough that that doesn't hurt them at all.
Right.
And then again, I'm stuck with that one in the middle. I can do the same thing. I set a pallet behind it, move it back. And specifically why I set the pallet behind it to move it back is for all those stragglers that sit on the bottom board. Once I move that colony back, they can still smell where home is. Home is gone because I've taken the box, and they can smell where home is. Under 20 minutes, that bottom board is clear. Everybody is marched into the box behind.
Yeah. Well, I've got to do a little bit of that, because some of my caught swarms, I put them in 10 frame box, but with a divider in the middle. Now they've outgrown that. So now, as soon as they made honey, though, that was a nice thing. But now, now there's no room on the stand for one of the two, so I'll just have to do, like you said, take a hit on them.
Yeah, they're pretty good at, moving them a short distance, just moving, changing the box or setting it right behind it so that they kind of come back to where home should be, and home isn't there, but they can kind of smell something that smells like home. So they generally be okay that way.
Hey, Bob, are you there? Did
Yeah,
you check? You put that nuke where that hot hive came from. Did they kill your queen? Because I was sitting there thinking, you got those mean bees going in there, and that's not my queen.
Well, that was a swarm, a small swarm that I'd caught. So I figured maybe they'd give them a boost, or maybe they'll wipe them out. Don't know. It's one of those things that we learn by experience, learn by trial and error. Sacrificial colony. So I haven't opened either one of those up today.
I was watching, I forget his name, JRT's Bees, I think is what it is. But he was trying to fix a laying worker, put a nuke, basically a nuke on top of them with newspaper. And I think they killed his queen. And, but I had just seen, like a week before, McBee Buzzin has a way of fixing a laying worker hive with a nucleus colony. And he used a double screen board on top of them, gave them a week. So they smelled the brood. They'll go in and kill all the laying workers, because he even showed on the bottom board, there were a lot of dead bees on the bottom. Those are the laying workers. And then he just takes it out and lets them and combines them without newspaper or anything. He said it works every time. And I had not heard of that until just a few weeks ago.
Have you seen Bob Binney solve the laying worker?
No. How did he do it?
Now, I don't know all of the nuances. It seems to me that the colony, the Queenright colony that you use for this, probably should be something that's on the same order of population and strength as the laying worker colony. You don't want to stick something a little tiny in there, because they won't have a chance.
Yeah.
But he just sprays everybody with sugar syrup. He sprays every side of every frame in there with sugar syrup. And in Bob's gentle way, you know how he says things. He just says, by the time they're done licking each other off, they're all sisters. and so that if it didn't work, Bob wouldn't do it. So that's kind of because I've seen him do that and on his videos, and I think, that's not going to work, but it does. And I think that's the key, is the sugar syrup, because they're pretty preoccupied at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I really, that double screen board trick, that it makes perfect sense that would, because, probably when queens get killed most of the time, it's more of a reaction than it is, they haven't had time to communicate with each other what's really going on. And so, especially if you move your, and that's what I told him. I said, as soon as you move that nuke over there and they cut through that paper, all the defensive bees probably fly out of the hive and go back to the old location. So not only are their numbers less, they don't have any older bees that'll protect her, because they've all gone home.
Oh yeah, I've shaken those laying worker hives out, and none of those bees hit the ground. They're so old.
Yeah.
You shake that frame and they're gone in the air. So if you just move that hive somewhere,
The
do
one I
whatever you
did,
want with it.
the one I did, they came out and they also stung me. They weren't happy.
Oh
with
yeah,
that.
be pretty cranky. Because really, my thing with laying worker colonies is it's a learning experience. Because first of all, you shouldn't have let that happen. That's the first thing to learn. And hey, it happens to me too, and often it happens because I get lazy. I know there's a problem, I don't deal with it, and guess what? Now it's too late. And the other thing is, when it gets to that point, what have you got? You don't have anything really of much value at all. You have a
Right.
whole hive full of garbage comb now because they've stretched all your cells out, and you have all of these old grumpy bees and a whole whack of drones, and that's about it. You don't really have anything of value there. So to me, it's almost a mercy mission to go and kind of save the lives of the bees that are actually in there, take them out, shake them in the apiary somewhere, disperse them, let them find a home, because they're going to have to mind their manners if they're going to be allowed in another home, and move on. To me, it's not worth the resources I have to pour into fixing my mistake. That's just my opinion.
Well, when I had 5 colonies, I tried everything I could to save them. But now that I have 30 or 40, I don't care. I'll just let them go. I got enough to deal with that.
Concentrate on the good ones.
That's why you should always get more hives, so you don't have to sweat out those losing one.
Well, I hate it too. You go and it's like, I just kind of kick myself because I caused it. That was my lack of beekeeping, animal husbandry is what caused this. It wasn't just, it happened. I let it happen. And so it's my learning experience. And I hate shaking that out because I've lost a colony because of me. Either I was lazy or complacent or whatever.
So, Bob, what did you do with that nasty queen? Did you mail her to Jason, or did you just...
No, I haven't done anything with her yet. I don't know why you would want it. I just did the switch yesterday, and tomorrow it's supposed to be a nice hot day, so they'll be out foraging, hopefully, mostly, and gonna take a look at it tomorrow. That's the plan.
I'll tell you what, my bees were 2 weeks ago. My bees, you couldn't make them sting you. They were so busy. And then 2 days ago, man, that's all they wanted to do was chase me.
Yeah, mine are the same way. I get out of the truck. I was out of the truck for like 10 seconds, and I didn't have my jacket on yet, and they got one in back of the head.
I guess that's not fair. Only when I broke into them. They hadn't gotten. They will get to that point after I take their honey away, and they don't have anything to do, and they got all those bees. They'll start coming looking for me again. But, hey, Alex, how's your colonies doing?
Well, since last week, there hasn't been any changes. I made the 24 splits with the cells I had, and tomorrow or Sunday, depending on whether it rains or not, I think I'm gonna check if there's any dud cells. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, though. Brad, what do you think?
It's a controversial subject. You're muted, Brad.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. What do you mean checking for dud cells?
If I grafted 24 queen cells, capped.
Yeah.
And, I was wondering if it was a bad idea to check if they had emerged or if they were dead. Like, we'll open the hive, see if it
in your mating nukes, you mean? Yeah.
What?
In your mating nukes, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't up on the whole story behind that. Yeah. No, I don't see there's any problem. Just be really, really gentle. Like, go into that mating nuke like you don't want her to know that you're in there.
Yeah, I just want to see
you don't want
if the
anybody
queen
to know you're in there.
emerged. That's all I want to know. Because if there's any
so
duds,
when you put that cell in there, Did you put it between the top bars, or did you just stick it to the side of the
I
comb?
stuck it to the comb.
Okay, so that's a little harder to check because you're going to have to lift that frame out to look at that. Um, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
How many frames are those mating nukes? How big are they?
2 or 3, depending on like what I had available. They had 2 or
Yeah.
3 frames of brood and food.
So the box, how big is the box? Is it
It's
like
a
a
5
4
frame.
frame box?
5
frame.
frame.
Okay, so you have lots of space there, right? So you have lots of extra space. Just pry those frames apart, slide them apart a little bit, and you should be able to see that cell. Maybe grab it with your fingers and yank it out of there.
Yeah, I just want to know if the queens emerged. If the queen cell seems dead, I just want to reallocate the frames somewhere else
Yep.
before they go don't layer.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Or put a new cell in it if you have.
I don't have any
anything
more
like that.
cells.
Yeah.
If I go below, I might just like if I only miss like 2 or 3 queens to get the 30 hives I want, I might just buy a handful of queens. Grafting for
Yeah.
3 queens is not worth it. At least in my opinion.
No, I think you're fine that way. I always, when I'm introducing a mated queen, a caged mated queen, when the queen is out of the cage, I always try to be very careful with that nuke, and don't bang it around, don't move it, don't open it up, don't pull frames. Just leave them, let them settle in there for 7 to 10 days. I'd like. But when a virgin emerges, I'm not sure that it's the same kind of dynamic for that. So
Okay.
I think you're okay to go and have a look at that. Especially you've got lots of space in that box, so you're not going to be crashing around as much. Just spread those apart a little bit, maybe raise that one frame, and just
So
be very gentle.
I just want to, like I said, just want to see, is there any dead cells? If there are, these need a queen.
So,
And I'll
Yep.
go buy 1 per dead if it's not too much. If I lost all of them, who knows?
Alex.
Then I'm gonna do another round of grafts.
So, Alex,
Yes.
how many days has it been since you put the cells in?
It's been a week. I grafted 2 weeks ago. Last week I transferred the capped cells into their mating nukes.
So
It's
let's
been
think
2
about
weeks since I grafted. Tomorrow.
let's think about this as a risk benefit. Okay, you've already said that you're not going to do anything to correct them, and you still have at least, I'd say, 2 weeks before you have to even be at all concerned, depending on when you set those up, of going laying worker. And even if they did, you're not going to lose your resources.
So wait for next week before I check the
But
nukes.
also, you're opening it up at a time when she could be wanting to leave and do her mating flight, and you could be confusing her with opening that colony up.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Maybe-
asking before I do
Or
this.
you may be trying to return, and it looks totally different from when she left.
Yeah.
I think you should think about all of, and other people. I've heard, Bob Benny and really experienced people say, don't mess with a colony that's requeening, because they'll blame the new queen for everything, and they'll kill her. But when I leave that comment and other people's things, they say, "Oh, I've never had my bees turn on a virgin." I'm like, "Well, what happened to her then? She was there when you checked it, and then you came back and she wasn't. How do you know what you didn't cause that?" So when I see a virgin running around on my frame, I get out of there. I put it back in and get out of there as quick as I can. I don't mess around. It's just because I've heard
that's good advice.
I've heard a lot of experienced beekeepers say you don't need to mess with them until they, like Brad said, even after they get settled in. I never thought of that, but once I see them laying, I think I'm good to go. But that's probably not the best plan either.
And I actually found
Well,
one of
I think in that case, you're probably okay, because she's kind of more. I don't know what the right term is. She's more indigenous to that colony at that point then. But if you're trying to introduce a caged mated queen, it's a little bit of a different situation than a returning, a virgin / returning mated queen.
Yeah.
I'm under the impression that that's a little bit of a different situation. I don't worry about that as much, because I check my mating nukes kind of as early as I can, and then I check them every few days after that.
Yeah.
So it's just my impression. I have no
Well,
I have no data.
I see so many inexperienced beekeepers, which I'm one of them, going in after 2 weeks. And that would have to be like the fastest they could be laying. And you would also have to see eggs, which is hard to see for a beginning beekeeper. I say no less than 21 days, and I would say 24. Cayman Reynolds says he waits 28 days. Just you're almost seeing cat
Yeah,
brood.
I'll try going in next week then.
Yep.
You have one of those, Alex?
Not the counter.
Account no.
Yeah,
CC
DC's
Gapper
Gadget.
spark
It's called.
plugs.
It's like $15. It's made of stainless steel. It's awesome and very handy. I keep that on my desk to time out my queen actions.
Yeah, because they should be emerging, I think, today or maybe yesterday. I'm not sure exactly. I grafted Saturday 2 weeks ago. So it's
So
16
this
days.
says the timing that this talks about is emergence on day 16, and where he's written laying says day 25. So that's another 9 days
9 days.
after
So I
it
grafted
emerges.
on the 3rd because I transferred the cells on the 10th.
Okay, I'll do this. Grafted on the 3rd. Okay. And so capping is on the 8th. In your nuke on the 13th is what it says here. And then laying on the 24th is what it says. And I know sometimes it takes even longer than that to lay.
Yeah,
Well, I moved them on the 10th because while I work, I have to go with the time I have. Because setting up those nukes took me quite a while. Like I left at like 9 in the morning and came back it was 9 p.m. Like almost 12
You
hours.
put them in the nuke on the 10th?
Yeah, I put them. I grafted on the 3rd. Put them on the nuke on the 10th instead of the 13th.
That's fine because if you're using an incubator, he writes incubate here on would have been on the 11th. So I think the 10th is fine.
Okay.
They do talk about a very sensitive time period, and I think that's in there, day 10, 11. So that would be the only thing. If you kind of shook them around too much, you might have a problem there. But yeah, it's pretty close.
Okay. I should have gone on Sunday then to move the grafts. Oh,
So
well.
you need one of these.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen them.
$15, man. Some of the best $15 I've ever spent.
I don't think I've seen them for sale here, though. I'd have to look up what's their
no,
what are
online.
they called?
DC's Gadgets online. Just Google DC's Gadgets. He doesn't have a fancy web store like Bob has. He has it's like a WordPress page, and you just look over on the right side of it, and he's got a thing there where you can order one. It's pretty simple.
I may have found my property.
All right.
That's what I've been doing. I got it shared on there if you want to pop it up, Charlie.
Speaking of queen cells.
$40,000 for 13 acres. It's got a 2-acre site for improvements, a 2-acre pond with approximately 9 acres of dry land. So it says perfect for recreational area or mini farm, horses, etc.
Looks like a lot of swamp right there in the center.
Well,
looks like a swamp.
On this side is a housing area, but the other side is not.
Yeah, that's swamp there. Well, it says it right there. How much dry land? 9?
9 acres, but 2 acres of it is a pond and 2 acres is a
swamp
home site. So
what do you mean home site?
It says 2 acres for improvements, so that's got to be for utilities and everything, right? For a home.
2 acre site.
9 acres of dry land.
Oh, it's probably still in the floodplain. That 9 acres is probably.
I used to live in the subdivision over here years ago, but I believe it's this side or back here. But I sent a thing in to find out about it. I mean, 40,000 for 13 acres. If it's going to be a bee farm,
Yeah, I agree with that.
and it's got water for them.
Charlie, Charlie, I put a link in. Could you publish that link for me?
It's in the private
private?
chat. I do that.
And I can go fishing.
All right. I also put in. Where's Alex at? I put in my club. You can go to our. I presume it'll go directly to our website, and you can print a wheel out. Where you can print it out on like heavy paper and put it together, and it does the same thing as what your steel wheel does. Do you have a wheel, Brad or Alex?
Yeah, I took up. I was eating something, and I took the time to bookmark the site Brad linked. And
yeah, now see the one that says Susquehanna beekeepers.com.
Yeah.
All right, that one you can print a wheel out on like heavy duty paper and put the two pieces together. Use color.
All right, I see.
While we're sharing that kind of thing, there's another one online, thebeeyard.org.
I got there, I use that all the time.
That's a really nice one because it's interactive. You can actually put in your grafting date and then hit go, and it'll spool out an entire calendar for you with all of the pertinent dates and a lot of descriptions and things.
Yeah.
It's a really nice page.
I got that. It's called the Bee Yard. I'll copy that and put it in. Let's see. The last one's the Bee Yard. You got the same thing. That one I use all the time myself.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if that'd be a good spot or not.
I bookmarked everything.
I like that PDF, Charlie. That's really nice.
What's that? My wheel?
Yeah, your PDF there. That's really nice. Very descriptive.
The guy who put that up there, he now lives in Texas actually, and he found it wasn't any copyrights or anything like that on it, so we kept it.
Norman he says I can make you a phone app with that color-coded wheel. That'd be fantastic, Norman.
That'd be great.
Then we just look at that on our phone.
I've seen that on Google Images. Also, they got the same thing on there.
Yeah.
What do you want, Lynn? You want me to post it in the GBBC?
Oh, and I actually found one of my ninja queens when I was setting up the the mating nukes. I stumbled on one of my queens, and my the handless queen grabber thing, it got stuck. And I'm not used to grab them by hand. My hands get kind of shaky because I don't want to squish her. So I had to call myself, grab her like the proper way. Then I was able to mark her and let her go down to the bottom box. But it was a bit stressful. I'm not used to handle queens.
Well, that's a milestone. Keep doing it. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like my fingers go like this because I'm afraid to put too much force. So it's like involuntary hesitation. It's weird.
I can't pick up a queen like that. I got to use those nitrile gloves. I got to put those on before I can pick up a queen, or I feel like I'm just gonna pinch it.
Yeah.
Like she managed to squirm away before the paint was completely dry, but I got it marked.
How many colonies
that's the
colonies do you
place
have,
to
Alex?
plug spot.
Right now, counting the nukes, 24 plus 12, 36. I'm counting the nukes. Otherwise, 12.
Do you have those all in one yard, or they're scattered around?
Yes,
aren't
those
you?
are all in 1 yard, but I have a second yard being set up right now.
That's good.
I'll be splitting it even for like down the middle. Ideally, 17 in each.
You're like a honey producer, right? That's your goal, right?
For now, yes. Eventually, queens and nukes, because they're quite profitable. But I don't think I want to go like very large producer. Like, well, Ian is pretty large compared to what I have. 300 with good gear seems like the max I would want for now. If I have like a lift, even like a dolly lift, like the one from it's built in Canada. We saw. We keep bugging Charlie to buy one of those.
Yeah, it's
If I
made
can
by
get, like
by
the
Boris. It's made by
small,
Boris is
Or
all I know.
Winnipeg.
if I can get one of those and the small beekeeping, the small pickup truck, like it's very tiny. We saw it last time after the chat, like when I spoke about the Unimog, and you kind of laughed at me, and Bob showed an image of a smaller truck. That's one of those with a hive lift. I think I could probably manage up to 300. 250 is more realistic, though.
So you're planning on making a career out of beekeeping?
Oh yes, oh yeah. I'm fed up with my current desk job.
Yeah.
Because testing video games is incredibly repetitive, and I can't. It bores me out of my skull,
Well,
and it doesn't pay very much either. So, like, even at what's it called?
dollars.
No. I'm trying to remember the term because I'm bilingual, and sometimes I mix up the words and I have a blank. Like the bulk prices. That's what I'm looking. Even at bulk prices, 300 hives would something like triple my salary. I don't make a whole lot of money. Because here the bulk price is say it's $3.25. I'm talking about Canadian dollars. And say I have 300 colonies and I average this at, let's say, 100 pounds. I don't know if it's overly optimistic. Let's just say 100 hives, 100 pounds per hive. So that's
That's double what we get it down here.
I get over 150 per hive in my basswood flow alone. Yeah, in Canada, the flows are shorter but more intense.
The yields are good, but the price isn't as good.
Yeah.
When does your basswood flow start?
It starts in 2 weeks maximum.
Really?
So let's say like out of 300, 250 are in production. Sorry.
So you got a 2-week flow and you get what 100 pounds per hive.
I think his pizza pops are ready.
So hey, Keith Laramore's got an interesting comment on there. It said, I got me a lead on an ice cream truck for storage.
Yeah.
$800 in the cooler works. Keith, you better do a YouTube series on that.
Fill it with ice cream, you probably make more money.
Right.
Just cruising through your neighborhood.
Sorry, my brother tried to set his food on fire.
So Alex, don't get swayed by gross margin.
No, I know it's not realistic.
No, I'm not trying to bash your dreams. I think it's admirable, but you think about cost of production is all. Go and talk to people who are doing it and see what that cost of production is, just so that you can get a realistic number of what you can expect.
My
Yep.
issue is just trying to hold down even like 30 hives. That's where I want to be, 30 hives, and still holding down a full-time job, because I don't want to be a person that has 300 or 500 or 1,000 hives. That's for sure. But I like, the idea of having 20 or 30. But I got like between 8 and 10 or 12 hives now, and at this time, and I have a hard time with those. I don't know how people do it, between like taking care of the house, mowing the lawn, doing any painting, and just that kind of maintenance around the house, and taking care of other things, and taking care of my hives, and going to work. And I don't know. It's tough. So 30 is going to be about my limit.
Like some
I
very
don't know how sideliners do it. I do not know how sideliners
Bruce,
do it.
let's Bruce have 100 or something like that. 100
I
hives.
can hardly keep up sometimes.
How many you got, Brad? Like 50 or 70?
Used to be
Well,
150.
most of them died, so not that many right now. But yeah, 100, 150 usually.
Okay, I did some like very rough math. It like, let's say 2,500 like 250 hives at 100 pounds each, say $3 a pound. That's below what's being offered right now. I would still have more than double the gross revenue the gross revenue of my current job. So I know it's not completely realistic. I'm like Brad says, the cost of production would probably lower that, but still, it's even accounting for all of that, I would still make a whole lot more money than I currently do. Even if it's not double, it's still worth it.
Hey, Brad, how do you handle your honey harvest? Because that's a lot of colonies for one person to harvest.
Yeah, it's my most unfavorite part of the year is harvest. It's pretty heavy. Well, the hive lifter that I bought really helps out.
Mhm.
Don't forget I have my little tractor, so that really helps out.
Right.
And I went into this beekeeping thing, and I already had my tractor and my truck and my trailer, all that kind of stuff I already owned. So that really helped out, because carting things around and whatnot was a whole lot less of a challenge right away. The hive lifter came after. Of course, I needed something just to lift off of the colonies. Last year, I actually used that hive lifter. I use an old timey cow uncapper in my honey house, but I don't have anything to lift the hives or the frames. I don't have a deep box or nothing like that. I actually used my hive lifter last year in the honey house to bring the supers up to a level where then I could frame by frame into the uncapper kind of thing. That worked really well, and that really saved my back. The biggest problem is that hive lifter actually takes a lot of space to move around. So keeping that in the honey house with all of the honey and everything was a challenge. I had to be very, very organized to have enough space.
Yeah. I carried 3 medium supers full of honey, about 150 yards, and it almost killed me.
3 at a time?
No, heck no, 1 at a time, 3 trips.
Oh, heavens.
So tomorrow, if I have
150 yards, that's a good little truck though. So yeah, I don't
maybe
plan to carry anything like that.
But probably 100 yards, but maybe even a couple hundred feet. It seemed like 150 yards. But tomorrow, I've got a tractor as well. It's got a bucket on the front. I'm gonna take my tractor over to the bee yard, and I'm gonna set all the supers in the bucket and haul them up to the cabin.
That's what I was doing my first 2 years before I bought my pallet forks. That's what I did. I think it was just my first.
And I mean,
it was my second year, I still had
only
that.
like 10 supers, but that can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my little tractor, it'll carry about 8 full deeps. Like it'll carry. I can't lift that very high. it'll lift 6 onto the truck pretty easily.
I always thought you
Sorry,
had
Charlie?
like a tiny little tractor, but then I realized you're
It's
such
not
a
very
big.
big.
It's not very big, but you're such a big man, it makes it look smaller.
It looks like a lot smaller tractor. It really is.
Looks like a toy.
Yeah, it does.
So how big? I have never seen your extractor. How big? How many frames does your extractor run?
It's
Brad?
pretty modest. It's a 33 frame Kelly. It's an old timey
Okay.
thing. So it's it's modest. The spin time is pretty long, and I spend most of my time loading and unloading it. But believe it or not, it's not my bottleneck. My bottleneck is because I try to strain all of my honey at the same time. So I try to get it into the pail
Clean.
through a 400 micron strainer so that it's ready to go in the jar.
Right.
And honestly, that's my bottleneck. So the
I do the
extractor
same.
is
I do the same thing. I mean, about by the time you do maybe a 5-gallon bucket of honey through that strainer, it's choked and all. But swapping it out with another strainer and stuff, and then washing it out.
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
we wash every pail. We'll wash the strainer once or twice, depending on how warm the honey is. It's just brutal, just brutal. I'd love to fix that problem, but I don't
Well,
really see a
Bob's
way I
talked
can fix
about
it.
that. What's it called? That
Clarifier.
Clarifier.
clarifier. You think that's
Well, I use that.
You have a
I
clarifier?
use that. I have a double. Well, I don't know what you're calling a clarifier. Maybe I shouldn't say
that's a
that.
long, elongated tank, heated,
Yeah,
and it has baffles
yeah,
in it and all.
yeah, yeah. I think mine is a Kelly. It's got 2 sets of baffles. It's the big one. It's the long one. It holds quite a bit of honey, and everything helps. It takes a lot of the wax out of it, but certainly not all of it. And then from there, it pumps into my wax melter, which I use as a great big jacketed uh, uh, bottling tank. And I've got that set up on a stand so that I can put a 5-gallon pail under the spigot with the strainer. So,
Mhm.
I have to warm the honey a bit to get it to go through that strainer, and that's the bottleneck is waiting for the honey to warm up.
Well,
It does
isn't
settle.
that
So the
clarifier
wax
heated
settles in.
also?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So again, it does take a lot of wax out of it. I do have to skim I call it a sump.
Mhm.
I have to skim it regularly. I usually skim it first thing in the morning or at the beginning of my extracting day,
Right.
because that's when most of the wax will have come to the top overnight. So I'll skim it at that point. But then there's still plenty of wax gets into that melter. Um, so it's no panacea. It helps. To me, the sump, as I call it, protects the pump, because the pump, it's only a 1-inch gear pump. It's not up to pumping a bunch of wax. So, because I know if I mess up and I get a bunch of wax in there, it's going to gum up my pump and I have to take it apart and pick it out. So the sump really just protects that pump from too much wax.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't.
It certainly doesn't take it all out, not by a long shot.
Right. But you're like you say, when you got 33 frames like that, you're pulling a lot of honey. It's coming out of that spigot pretty good, I would say.
Out of the extractor,
Yeah, the
yeah,
extract out of the gate.
yeah, it'll.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's 3.5 boxes, right? 3.5 deep boxes at a time, and that'll be about, I don't know, I'm gonna say 8 gallons for a reference. It'll more than fill a 5-gallon pail, but I don't think it'll fill 2.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it will. It's been a long time since I've actually extracted into a pail, so I can't remember.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I took 3 boxes Well, mine were mediums though. Yours might go. You're doing deeps, right?
Yeah, he's running deep.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
understated that.
I was gonna say it's got to be more because I did 3 boxes of mediums and it was 100 pounds of honey, which I think was like 4 gallons in 2 5-gallon buckets. So,
Yeah.
So yours
Yeah, I
would
think it's
probably
more. I'm
be
thinking of my
30,
old extractor. I think
Yours-
my old extractor would
probably
do
about
just
100.
over 5-gallon pail.
Yeah, probably be 140 pounds. Yeah, it'd be 2 5-gallons and then a little bit of another. Probably
Runs
maybe just a little.
about an average, I think, of 5 pounds a frame or so. About 40 pounds a box.
Yeah.
So 3.5 boxes,
Yeah,
100,
yeah.
150 pounds.
That's right. Because the medium's about
Yeah.
3 pounds of honey.
Yeah, MR wants to know whether or not you can use a diaphragm pump, and I'm like, I don't think so. It isn't gonna pump thick honey.
I don't know. I don't think so. Too
Nah.
small. That 1-inch pump, the gear pump is small enough. The big guys, they use what is it? It's kind of a screw pump or something.
Yeah, it's called a
where
worm
it's a
drive.
screw in there. A
think it's
worm
called a-
drive. There's another
Yeah, but
one.
isn't it called a lobe pump? That's what Mr. Ed bought. He had the gear pump, and it choked that thing up with wax. And then he got
Yeah.
one. It had like, I don't know, they're like real big, like a lobe or a gigantic teardrop that would
looks
pull
like-
that stuff through.
It looks like a drill bit almost. It'll grind the wax up as it's pulling stuff through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What they are is
I
expensive.
know I can say the diaphragm pump is not going to do that because I use a diaphragm pump on my honey tank. And if you get close to 2 to 1, I'm about 50 pounds shy of sugar to make it true 2 to 1 concentration. And it'll pump, but when you get a little thick, it will not pump. I actually changed
2
the
to
pump
1
out.
is surprisingly hard to pump. Like it's really quite hard to pump.
I had
It's
I
quite
had a
surprising.
pump and I thought it was burned up or whatever. Got a new pump, and then I found I had to, like you said, thin that out with some water, and then it finally pumped. And then another
Progressive
thing is
cavity
every
pump, try
spring
to
is
say.
to tear that, got to take that pump apart, and you got to wash it with soap and water because it will get a sticky crust on that diaphragm and it will not pump
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. So see, try to progressive cavity pump. That's what those pumps that'll pump just about anything, I think.
He says use the pump to transfer taco meat over. Well,
Taco meat.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
Taco meat, ground meat.
It must be it ain't the kind of pump I'm thinking then. And hope
Bob's over there shopping for property still.
Yeah, it's not going good. So I actually I had a conversation with a multimillionaire yesterday, and he used to own some grocery store, like chain grocery stores. And then he got into the retail bread business, and he owns like most of Columbia's territory for reselling bread. And I was asking him about what should I do with the settlement that I got, right? So his thing was, he said, well, I've done a lot of things. I've tried the stock market and lost, tried real estate, lost. He said, the only thing that I've made money at was reinvesting in my own business and growing it. So he suggested the same thing. If you're gonna do the beekeeping thing, he said, then reinvest your money into your infrastructure for your business and grow it. So land, land typically goes up in value over time. It's not a bad investment. So, and if you're going to use it to produce money, with honey, then you can't really lose because you can always sell the land and pull your money back out at some point.
So you need to check and see if you can get some kind of ag exemption, or if it already has an ag exemption. That's the only way we can. That's the only way you can afford land in Texas is if it comes with an ag exemption. Otherwise, of course, here the property taxes are crazy.
Well, speaking of property taxes, you know, I just bought this new vehicle, right? I got the tax bill on said new vehicle today.
What do you got? A yearly tax on that?
Yes, sir. $30,000 vehicle is what they rated it at.
They want to pay $844 a year?
That's the first year. It'll supposedly will go down next year. But just to give you an idea, nothing on this except for $20 of that goes to road maintenance. Everything else goes to schools, the county, a little bit the fire service, and then it goes to public library, recreation, our local zoo, our local technical school, mental health. So you're paying for all
that. All that money just funnels back into the pocket of some politician.
Yes. So I looked at the zoo, right? The zoo site today. It's not free to get into the zoo. You think if they're charging everybody tax that you'd be able to get in the zoo free, right? So no, the zoo costs $25 to get in, and they do over, it says on their website that they do over like 1.1 million visitors a year to that zoo. So that means they're making $26 million a year just off admission. Not, you know, they have their donators and all that, the food and all that stuff that they sell inside. And I'm like, well, why don't you guys just, if you're doing that, why don't you just charge $5 to park like everywhere else that has big things? And then you can eliminate that tax altogether. Then the people that are using the zoo are paying for the zoo. But no, everybody in the county pays every time they get a car. And Georgia's different. Georgia, you pay that tax when you buy the car, and you don't pay any more tax on your vehicle. But if I sold that car to Charlie and he was in Georgia, he would then have to pay the tax on the vehicle when it switches hands. So they do get multiple taxes off of it.
Well, I mean, that's the way we do here in Maryland, is that there's sales tax.
That's a sales tax.
6% sales tax on the vehicle.
Well, they do sales tax, but in Georgia, they call it an ad valorem tax. So it's like your property tax all at one time. South Carolina, they rape you every year on it. So
there's no such tax here, and I'm glad for it. All I have to pay is the registration and the insurance.
But they tax the living daylights out of your paycheck, don't they?
I'm not sure.
You have socialized medicine, don't you?
Yes, I pay about 40% of my salary overall.
And you said you didn't make very much, so imagine what people are making a lot pay.
Well, they find exemptions. Yeah,
well.
That's why you need that cash honey business.
Yeah, well, another good reason to go full-time beekeeper. Because
40%.
Follow your dreams, Alex. You know,
40% is 5% more than the highest tax rate in the United States. Somebody that had your job would probably not pay any tax overall. They'd pay a little bit in, but they'd get more back
on the refund side, right?
Yeah. You'd probably be paying half that in taxes in the States. But then you do have other taxes, sales, property, all that stuff.
Yeah, there is a tax when you buy a vehicle. My brother sold me his for not a whole lot, and I had to pay tax when I purchased a vehicle from him. Well, that's it.
He should have gifted
then plates and place and registration plus the insurance.
He should have gifted it to you. In Texas, your brother or your parents.
$1.
It's $10. It's $10 is the.
I think like my dad did that. I know when I was a kid, he got a car as a gift from his brother, and I think the laws changed, and there's a big tax if you do that. It's usually cheaper if you just sell it for 100.
Well, we tried that. I tried that with my brother sold his car to me. It was for my son, and when I went up there to the tax office, when we transferred the title, the lady at the bank, she's like, "You're not gifting it. You're not." And she asked us that like 3 times, and he's like, "No, they're buying it for $3,500." And so when I went to the tax office, they said, she goes, "It's going to be 200." She said, "We have to, since you bought it from him, we can't accept it as 3,500. Our book here says that car is 7,800 or 8,000 or whatever. You have to pay tax on that, or you have to prove that it's not worth as much as they said it was." So I ended up paying like $256 in tax on the thing, and I left there and I called my brother. I was like, "Why didn't you give me that damn car? You just cost me another $250." So,
well, that's like a friend of mine. He's passed away now, but he went to the Motor Vehicles Administration, and he had a business. He had this van. The van was diesel, but it had like 300,000 miles on it. It was like wore out. And the one, the right hand was selling it to the left hand in the corporation thing. And they said, "Well, it's worth X amount of dollars." He says, "Well, if it's worth," he said, "All right, if it's worth that much, I'll take the check."
yeah, and you can have it.
You can have it for that much money if you want to do it, Well, a bill of, under the law here, a bill of sale is not a legal document. So he says, "Give me it." He used to work there, so he knew the tricks to play. He said, "Give me that bill of sale." He went back to the office, had it stamped with a notary stamp, which in turn makes it a legal document that they have to accept that it was that's what that was. And then he handed it over to the lady, the same one, and she got all bent out of shape, like the money was coming out of her own pocket. And he says, it was. Let's say they sold it for $2,000. Well, they had to accept the fact that it was $2,000 because it was a legal document and all that. So that's how you got around that years ago. So we've been talking about equipment and all that kind of stuff. And I sat down before we got on and I made up a file of pictures of the stuff that I've have and had. So I figured I'd take and share that with all you guys tonight. And extractors and bottling tanks, some of the stuff that I have. So let's see if I can do this. Hit present. Share screen. Let's see. How do I do that, Bob? As far as like a picture, how do I share it?
Is it you should have one that says either tab, window, or entire screen, and you should be able to pick where it's at.
Hit share screen.
Yep.
And then it says share screen. All right, window. I want to share just that. Now, are you seeing everything? What are you seeing? Anything at all?
No, then you got to add it to the stream.
Oh. Well, it's not doing what I want to do. That's not what I want. Mm, I don't understand.
Can you get what you want on the screen on another view or something, and then click share screen and click on that tab?
Well, I had it in a folder and it wants to share the folder, and I don't want the folder sharing. I want the file in the folder, and I've got it clicked. But
Do
it
you have
doesn't.
have the do you have the file open on your computer?
Okay, I got it open.
All right, now hit share screen. Just click the tab back to StreamYard, hit share screen, then go back
All
up.
right, hold on. Present, share screen, share. Select a tab to share.
Yeah.
Here it is. All right, that's better. Now, do you see that? No,
No.
you don't.
No.
Now you will.
There you go.
All right, that was the first extractor that I had. It was a Maxan. I bought it. It came with hot knives and smoker and gloves and veils and all this other stuff this guy was selling out. And I think it's a 6-framer that Maxan still sells this size extractor. And then let's see, go back to that. This is what it looks like on the inside. Where are we at now? Percent, share, window.
Look at Charlie learning how to use StreamYard.
I'm used to using Zoom. There's the inside of the basket. Now they've come up with a better basket these days.
It's not up yet.
It's not up.
Not on my end.
Now you got to add share to stream like you're adding somebody in at the
All
bottom.
right, there it is.
Now you should be able to just click on the tab and go right and left between those images at this point, right, Bob?
Should be able to, if he's sharing the screen and not just the photo or not just that one thing.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Sharing the file?
No, just click on the tab and then go right or left and see
What
it.
tab are you talking about?
Your
Should be
photos.
the tab at the top. It should say StreamYard in one of your tabs, and the other one should say the file name. You won't be able to see us while you're doing it, but that's all right.
You mean the tab that's in this photograph right here is what I'm saying?
No, do you have tabs at the top of your screen? Like mine says, mine has the YouTube, Charlie's Sawmill.
If you close that photo down, you should have all your images pop up, and you should be able to click the image, and it should pop the next one up.
Yeah.
Without stopping it.
Yeah, if you exit out, you got to go back and reshare.
All right. Well, I got those are the two things there, and then stop the screen. I don't understand what's the deal is.
Are you sharing the screen or the slides?
I'm trying to share the photograph is what I'm trying, the photograph.
Right. But if you hit share screen, whatever's
on that screen will show on the other screen. So you can just click the photo and it'll pop up.
Yeah.
So that's how I can pop something up and then change tabs on the top.
Yeah. I think he's sharing the file.
It says, all right, you got Chrome tab, you got window, and you got entire screen.
Entire screen. And then pick the screen that your photo is on, and then you can change between the photos without changing the without resharing it every time. All right.
All right.
So whatever screen your picture's on, you have two screens or just one. Yeah, there you go. Now click the picture.
Well, that's crazy.
That's us. You click the stream.
Now, how in the hell do you get out of it?
Here, like that.
At the top.
Now on the left, you see your photos. Click your photo, one of the photos on the left that you want to share.
Yeah. Click it. There you
see
go.
Ta-da! Now you can make it big or however you want to do it.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
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 All right. Well, that's and it shows it's sitting on the stand and everything. Anyway, the stand came with it. The guy had built that, and you know, it bolted it down, but it wiggled and rocked and all. And then, if you look right in the lower right hand corner there, you've seen there was my 5-gallon bucket and capping bucket. And I had that comb and capper thing, and then the paint strainer is in there. And then this is before the guy told me to go get rosin paper and all. And then let's see, what else do I want to show you? All right, so that's what I had. Now this is what I have today. Is my Man Lake. It's an 18 frame extractor. I got rosin paper on the floor. And my honey buckets, and there's that 400 micron strainer. It holds 18 frames. It does a pretty good job. I put it on this here. This is the pallet that it came on. So I screw it down every year, and that keeps it so I can put the bucket underneath the spigot. I don't know why they build extractors when they're not tall enough to put buckets underneath them. And then,
someone told me because it's designed to go into a honey sump. So then you have to buy the clarifier and the pump to pump it up into something else.
And then last year, I finally, after 11 months of waiting, I finally got this. There's my Max Ant bottling tank. It's 25 gallons.
Ah, impressive.
And I put the lower valve down here. It came with a plug, and that's where you drain the water out. And I'm like, well, that's kind of dumb. You know, you have no control on how to drain it. So I got my cousin who's a plumber. We put some nipples in there, and it's got this quarter turn valve, and it's got a little square thing on the handle. There is actually a safety lock. So you got to slide it up so you can turn it to actually drain the water out of it. And you can see it sitting on a table. And the table is this. And it's a scissors lift. And you just take your foot pump there and pump it up. And I got this idea from
Mike Berry.
Mike Berry.
How much is that lift? I need one of those in my life.
Huh?
How much was that lift? I need that in my life.
$390. I just bought another one here last week.
Yeah, where'd you buy that at? That could come in handy for more than just honey.
Harbor Freight. That's a Harbor Freight table.
I was thinking about that the other day because I'm going to switch from my 2.5 gallon bucket bottling tank to a 5 gallon. But when I go to pick that 2.5 gallon one up to set it on the table, I'm like,
flexes probably, right?
Well, plus like picking up a 5 gallon bucket, they're not so bad when you just pick them up to your waist, but to pick a 5 gallon bucket full of honey up like this, that's heavy.
Now what I do is I jack it up like right here, and then I sit in a chair and I just use that, one drip valve there, and I do all my honey bottling. And things have changed. Like there's a piece of furniture here off to the left is not there anymore, and this table off to the right is clear. And I put
is that the Hallmaster or the Pittsburgh Automotive one?
I think it's the Pittsburgh. It's 1,000-pound capacity.
Oh no. Okay. They got one that does 500 pounds.
And it doesn't. And I looked at it down there, and it's
$250.
Yeah, but it's not the capacity. It's also the size of the unit itself. The table was smaller. It's like an inch narrower. It only raises 27 inches. This raises 37 inches. And or 20, yeah, it was almost just a little, yeah, it was 27, I think, just a little over 2 foot height raising. And this sucker is heavy. I mean, it probably weighs 300 pounds itself. You know, it's a heavy built thing.
And then they got the Hall Master, which is $369. That does 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, they all seem to come from China, and they got a gamut of price ranges.
You don't notice it like lowering over time from the weight or anything?
My brother had one, and must be a valve in here, and it will lower down. I used his for the uncapping tank, and I bought another one of these for my uncapping tank, and it would seep down. And now this one here, I raise it up, I bottle within about 10 minutes worth of bottling, and then I let it back down and let it sit there. So, it does what it does.
Well, that thing, they actually have 20% off of any single item starting today through Sunday because of Father's Day. So you could save $60 on it right now if you got the cash to get it.
So this is my 2-frame mating box that I built several years ago. And then that is the little gate that I made. It's just that's a piece of wood there. I actually used, that's about 1.5 inches by 2.5 long. And I use those for you'll see me with little blocks like that on my hives for ventilation. I took the same block and I kind of free drawed it, and I curved that curve around there and used a sander actually and ground that wood around on a curve. And then I found like a pair of safety glasses, one of the cardboard boxes, and I doubled the cardboard, and I used that as a gauge to set that block up off of the wood. And then that's when I would drill it, and it works well. I can, and then underneath this on the bottom, there's 2 big holes for ventilation. And there's another shot of it. And it's like 3/8 by 1/2 inch wide hole. And that kind of thing. Did you seen the inside of that this here, right? This thing here was the way it was originally designed. It was supposed to 2, 4, 5, 6. It was supposed to have 8 frames on there, and it's supposed to be kind of like semi radial, but they completely reworked this here cage in there where it is a little bit more radial than what they originally had. But that's what I use and all that.
Okay, Charlie. So of all that stuff that you showed us, what would you say the one purchase you made since you've been beekeeping, like that? What was the game changer that made the difference for you, that kind of elevated you up to the next, the next step?
Next step. Kind of depends on where you're at and how much honey you got. I went from a 6 or 8 frame, extractor there to that 18 frame radial. I mean, I would go radial for sure, and if you got 30 hives, that was a man lake, and that came from Italy. I would get the license like Bob's got. If I was doing it over again, I get the 20 framer. The basket in that 20 frame license is flat metal, and it's cut real true, and it'll hold the frames in there really nice. I think look at and that one that I have is more of a wire that's been welded. It's a little, the frames are floppier, kind of sloppy holding. But I don't know, my extractor is a game changer as far as the volume of frames. And then the next thing that was a major game changer was like my bottling tank this year. But I had gotten to the point with single brood chamber and all that, where I went from 500 pounds to 1,000 pounds of honey. Now you got, I'm still in 5-gallon buckets. And I'm like, okay, this stuff is going to start crystallizing. So then I had to make a hot box to keep at least 3 buckets in there to try to keep her from crystallizing and liquefied. And then I had a bucket with a honey gate on. That was my bottling tank. And I'd keep 40 to 50 pounds of honey in there. And I'm dragging it upstairs from the basement into the kitchen, the bottle. And what a pain on my back and my, and all that stuff and all the labor. Now I've got that bottling tank, and it's like, now I got a place I can store 25 gallons of liquid. I got it with a water jacket. I can control the heat. I keep it at between 92. It fluctuates between 92 and 98 degrees. It's ready to bottle at a moment's notice. All I got, and
when you need it.
Yeah. I jack the table up. I can bottle up 20 pounds, keep a certain amount of. People say, well, I bottled all my honey up. And I'm like, well, how do you know you're going to sell that? I mean, I'm going to bottle a little bit up in a 8-ounce bears. I got 1 pound, 2 pounds, and 3 pounds. I keep a spreadsheet of all that. I can tell you right now, the best selling size is 1 pound and 2 pounds for me. And then I sell, what do we got? I sell 3 pounds. And here lately, 3 pounds have been selling quite well. And the darn honey bears have been relatively selling fairly. They've been going out the door more so than lately.
That's a new box I made for, one of those I made for my mating nukes.
Mm-hmm. It's good looking.
And it's very, very easy to make. The measures are simple, and it takes like 1 sheet of plywood will make 4 or 5 of those. A 4x8 sheet of 3/4 plywood.
That's
and
good.
Once
and
it's waxed in, it'll last forever. Sorry, what?
It's 3/4, and
yeah.
Like you say, the stuff is so high today. It doesn't matter where you buy it. It's just really high.
And I took the time to
other
use
thing is the shipping. Getting it to you is the great unknown, right? So, prime example, the uncapper I just got, that was $556 just to have after you buy it to get it to your house. So that's the hidden cost that nobody talks about, right?
Yeah, something else I did for every nuke is like on this one, you see I made like the Big Dipper using sealing wax. Every mating nuke I have, I make a pattern in front of it so the queen has a better chance of finding it back.
Either that or paint it, that kind of
stuff. Yeah, but it was already sealed in wax, so, and I didn't have any paints on me. Sealing wax was the easiest way to do something.
Cool.
No, I just wanted to show it off.
Yeah, it was good, Alex. So when I got to the point where I needed a place to store more honey, that bottling tank was the way to go. Now, I was lucky. I did get a local grant through the ag program here at the time. And then the only other thing I didn't have a picture of it is my uncapping tank, which is a hive butler. And I went from the 5-gallon bucket to the hive butler, and that didn't reduce it, pretty much eliminated any honey mess. And it also made it easier for me to reclaim the honey out of the cappings. And it was pretty much all you had to do is just let it sit there, and the uncappings will drain over a period of 5 days or so. And, you didn't have to take any work out of you to get it to do that. And I bought another one of them lifts to put my uncapping tank on. Now, I mean, if I had the space like Bob there has that 16 by 20-foot room, I would, go with have like a uncapping tank like Bob has, one of them long ones, with a steel, and kind of make it permanent. That way you don't have to move it around and all. And then like with Alex there, if he's going to get 300 hives, he's going to have a honey house, number one, but I would go with a 30 frame extractor right off the bat. And then
that's why I got this an extractor this large, because I knew I wanted to have 200 between 2 and 300. So that,
well, I mean, if you know the direction that you're going and you're serious about it, it's like I said when Bob, he was trying to get to 20 or to 30. I says, are you serious? Are you going to, go 30 honey hives or whatever? And he says, yes. I said, well, then get to 30 because it's cheaper in the long run. If you buy a 20 and try to resell it, you've lost your shipping cost. You've lost a certain amount of the original price. And if you just go and buy the 30 frame and spend the extra $500 or whatever it was at the time, then it's actually cheaper in the long run.
I think it's $600 right now, $600 difference.
Yeah, I'm sure it's went up. It's just like that bottling tank. That bottling tank was, I think, $1,800 last year or a year before, or over a year ago. Now I think it's over 2,000.
The license extractor, I checked, I looked it up like less than a month ago, and the price went up over $400.
Yeah,
from last year. So yeah, I'm really glad I bought it. Like bought the biggest I could right away.
Yeah,
it's cheaper over a longer time.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I like the way they designed that extractor, because with the controller caveat is the only issue I really have with it. But I like the fact that the motor and the belt drive are on the bottom, so the top you can open up either side to load. And for the price, when you start comparing prices of equipment and quality, the license was the way to go for me. It's just no comparison. I mean, let's use Lee likes his extractor, and he's got a Dadant 20 frame, and his Dadant 20 frame right now is $600 more than the licensed 30 frame. So it's about just what you want. It doesn't matter if you want to do a 2-frame, 4-frame hand crank, and that's what you're good with, and that's good. It's about knowing, like you said, Charlie, where you want to be and what your goal is. And hopefully, this extractor lasts a great long time, because even the minima line from Lyson only has a 40 frame extractor. It's 10 frames more. But other than the honey sump and the wax press, I've got the entire line basically. I've got the biggest. I got the uncapper and the tank and the extractor, the biggest. Now, like we were saying earlier, you're always going to find that bottleneck. Well, where's your bottleneck after you increase those? Well, just like Brad said, well, now it's the slowdown of the actual filtering process. So, some people are like, well, I just put the metal strainer on there. Yep, that's great. But now you're stopping every time the honey gets this deep, right? And waiting on it to drain down. And then you got to keep doing that, or you got to have multiple strainers to swap them out. So you can clean one out so it'll flow again. So there's always something. So it's just a matter of what you want to do and how, what you're building will account.
Yeah. Well, it's like with Brad and like he's got 33 frames, or like you with 30 frames. If you're in the situation where you've got a tremendous amount of honey boxes and you're trying to do this as, I'll say, more of a production thing, the straining is definitely an issue. Whereas for me, all right, I'm going to come in after work. I'm going to uncap 18 frames. I'll say 2 loads, no more than 2 loads. So 2 18 frame loads, and I'm done for the night. And that'll probably be 10 o'clock at night or better. By that time, so that'll be at least a couple buckets. And so I can wait on that strainer to a certain point, where I can swap that strainer out for the next bucket and continue on. And there's not enough fines that really choke it up too bad. Where if you're doing, load after load after load when it comes to your extractor, then that bottleneck is definitely a major issue for you because of the volume of your trying to produce out in so many hours and all that. So
hey, I dropped a link in there. I know we got a few people that are in the chat from South Carolina. That ag card that it costs $25, but then every time you go to Tractor Supply or anywhere you're buying stuff for your bees, whether it's sugar or anything like that, you can get it's tax free. And I've used it at Better Bee. They've got my tax number on file, so when I order equipment from Better Bee, I don't have to pay tax on the equipment because I'm using it for my bee farm, right? So it's a piece of equipment, and I don't pay tax on it. So that's something
is that the one? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it costs $25, but I've saved a lot more than $25 with all the equipment and everything that I've bought. Even Tractor Supply, if you get that card and go in there and you need to buy chicken feed or whatever, that'll be tax free for you.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
I should look up if there's something similar here in Quebec.
We have a thing, one of our members found. It was for the state of Maryland, and it lists in there tax exempt or sales tax exempt beekeeping equipment. And we're all farmers, bee farmers. So, and we've used it on our bottling or a bottle order that we had for the group. We saved like $500 in taxes. Of course, that was on like a $9,000 order for the group. So anyway, but it's good to do.
I was looking at that again. Because Philip said something about it with land, and I'm trying to see if they got anything for land exemption. Because if they do, then it makes it a little bit, I know like some people in Texas will have you bring colonies out to their property so they can qualify for that ag exemption on their property and get a discount. So I was trying to see if there's something like that for South Carolina. But that's the only card that's come up, or the only thing that's come up so far.
And Ed, he's going to go help Bruce out harvest honey. Now, anybody that needs an automatic uncapper and a 30 frame extractor is Bruce's bees.
Well, he has an extractor. I'm not sure what brand it is, but it doesn't need.
I think it's a 20 frame license, maybe, is it?
I don't know. They run 2 of them, right?
Yeah, there's the other guy that actually has the honey house. And all. That's really kind of amazes me. You got somebody like that. It does what, 2,000-3,000 pounds of honey, at least 3,000 pounds, maybe close to 4. And I'm like, if anybody, and he's got enough money coming out of that honey, to justify the expense of an automatic uncapping line. And not right there is a perfect example. On an automatic uncapping line, the honey's, a 30 frame extractor or bigger, and then having the slump and all that other stuff to make it a little more, get rid of the bottlenecks to make it more automated. He could justify all that stuff. And he could sell enough honey in order for the bees to pay for it all too. Easily. So What's up, Darren?
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
So what were your game changers?
Well, I just bought the biggest game changer, so it's
Yeah.
kind of every time I get something, it's kind of a game changer, right? So, first thing I had
I'll be back.
purchased. Well, I had a 8/4 frame small extractor, and then stepped up to the 30 frame. And the reason I did that, well, I actually bought two things at the same time. I bought an uncapping tank, which was the hugest, probably the biggest thing, because I could have gotten by with an 8-frame extractor, but I didn't have anywhere to hold my frames while they were waiting to be extracted, right? So if I brought in 4 boxes to extract out, I could still only uncap what I could put in my extractor at the time, because I couldn't put it back in a deep box and let it just hang, right? So the uncapping tank was probably the first thing that really changed that, but I got the uncapping tank and the extractor at the same time. So I was able to uncap a bunch, then load the extractor and uncap some more. And so that was the first thing. Was probably for me the uncapping tank, because that was my first bottleneck. And then, of course, if you can uncap that many frames, then the bottleneck becomes the extractor, because now I've got all these frames ready to go, and I'm waiting on, running, let's say 4 deep frames at a time for 5-10 minutes, and then having to flip them around and run the other side for 5 or 10 minutes, and 4 frames at a time when you got 40 frames takes a long time to process. So those two things really helped me out to begin with. And then it became, well, now it's taken a long time to uncap, right? So I bought the uncapper this year, and that's helped things out. But now my bottleneck is the filtration part of it. So separating the fine bits of wax from the honey, because there's nothing wrong with the metal mesh or any of that. But if you've got 10 gallons of honey and you have to stop the gate every 2-3 inches to let the honey go through the strainer, it just takes a long time. So that's kind of where I'm bottlenecked out now. Just like Brad, right? So now I'm looking at honey sumps and stuff like that. But he's saying, well, he still gets fine bits of wax in there, so he's still finding himself straining it. So, so just looking for a good good workaround that I don't have to spend another $4,000 right now, which I'm not going to spend it right now. I'll suffer through the headaches, and then who knows, after that there'll be another thing that is like, well, crap, I still got this problem or that problem. And I think it'll always be that way as long as I continue to grow. Once you get to that point, like where Charlie said, I just want 30 colonies, I'm at 30 colonies, I'm gonna keep it there. And then he's hit that number of hives, so now he knows this is about how much honey I'm going to get. This is about how long it's going to take me to process. This is how I'm going to do it, and getting that implemented. My problem is I haven't set that what my goal is. So really, I'm letting the state right now dictate how much honey I want, because the law says I can do 4,800 pounds before they have to do an inspection of my honey processing facilities. So I'm trying to get the number of colonies it takes me to produce 4,800 pounds, right? So if we do the quick math, I guess 4,800 pounds at 50, average of 50 pounds per colony is 96 colonies. So 100 colonies is where I want to be at right now, to hit that goal. So we'll every year produce that? No. Some will produce a little bit more. It doesn't say how much I can produce. It only says how much I can sell. So, right. So that's the thing. I can produce, and if I don't sell it, and it waits till next year, well, now I got 48 more 100 pounds I can sell, right? So by law. Now there's a gray area because I don't have bee police that come up and they don't know how pounds of honey I produce. They don't know how many I've sold because most people, like we said, when they come up to buy a mason jar full of honey, they're handing you cash money, right? They're not sending you a credit card or something like that. So the gray area is the government can't really track it, too much.
Now, Darren, you were saying you are wanting to grow to about what, 30 hives? That's 30 honey production hives.
Yeah, I can see me at 30 honey hives.
So
all right.
30 times 50 will give you about 1,500 pounds on average of honey, right? And if we figure that it is, use medium deeps or deeps for your honey supers?
For mediums.
Mediums. So that's about what, 30, we'll say 33 pounds. Some people say 35, some people say 30. So we'll go in the middle at like 33 pounds. So that's 45 supers. 45 supers is 450 frames. What size extractor do you have?
I only have it's just a 3-frame extractor now. I definitely would need an upgrade.
All right. So divide how long does it take you to
week off work?
So you got 3 frames. That means you have to run that machine, assuming it's radial and not tangential, you have to run it 150 times. Right? So if you had a 30 frame extractor, now you're running it 15 times, right? So that gives you the time savings difference, and then you just have to decide if the amount of money is worth that time savings. But it's not only the time saving the first year, it's every year after that, right? So
but I mean, I know, Darren, you're looking, it sounds like to me you're trying to figure it out and guidance and all that, and what's time, a game changer. Well, I would say the first piece would be your extractor, and then along with the uncapping tank. Now, like for me, all right, I got a dozen honey hives. I got 40 supers out there. I think most of them are all full, on them hives, and all that. So I'm looking, let's say I'm hoping for 1,000 pounds of honey. And I got an 18 frame extractor. I got rid of the 5-gallon bucket. I got the hive butler. It was keeping like you were saying, I got a back porch that's enclosed with windows and all, and space is limited. So the hive butler uncapping tank is portable, is the right size for what I need right now. I was going to get like a 4-foot tank. That's $800. I can do the same thing. I'm looking at how many, if it's a Saturday afternoon, yeah, I'll start at, let's say 1 o'clock in the afternoon and after work, and I'll do 4 loads of, extraction, maybe 5 or 6 at that, because of the amount of time I got. And it's just only me. And so it works for me. The size is what I'm getting at. And so then like I say, with the honey tank, with the bottling tank, it was, well, I need a bigger place to store the honey so it doesn't crystallize. So, well, and in between that, I've also have a hot box, which is a reused refrigerator, which does well for that. And
see, I use my bottling tank as my decrystallizer. So I just put it in there and warm it up and let it decrystallize itself, and then pump it. But I don't have the honey right now that Charlie's got, so I don't have buckets and buckets and buckets of honey sitting around. The way I've been doing it is I've typically been pulling, I'm like everybody else. I'll go out there by myself. I'll pull 4 or 5 supers off and go extract them and maybe 10, 15 supers, whatever I can get that day. And that's what I spin out. But it's based on size. And you were saying it was a time thing for you as well, right? You don't know how people that work a job can have more. So that was my thing. I'm working a job. So my time to process that is basically Saturday and Sunday. Right. So, and when I pull it, I extract it. I don't leave it sitting because we got the hive beetles and all that stuff that we got to worry about with it. And so the faster I can do that for me, the better. Now that's not everybody's case, but that's why I've invested heavily into that part of the business, is because I feel like in the long run, I won't have to do that again for a long time.
And you got what, Darren? You got like a 4-frame extractor, you say?
3-frame.
3-frame? Yeah, I mean, and it's I get is it hand crank?
Yeah. I know you love the hand cranks.
Well, I just
That's what
I don't
asked.
know. It's like, do you do a brace and bit anymore, or do you get yourself a cordless drill?
I'm gonna have to get a drill for this. Probably got 30 hive.
Well,
Now,
what I'm
here's the
driving at is,
question for
we've modernized. We don't use a brace and bit anymore. We use a DeWalt electric drill.
Here's a question for you.
To drill a hole. I'm like, why are beekeepers still trying to use a brace and bit extractor instead of buying a DeWalt, drill? I mean, I know it's more money, but
Well, that's what you get whenever you're starting out and you only have 2 hives. So that's
Well, how much did your 3-frame extractor cost you, if you don't mind me asking?
it was like, you know what it is? One of those Vingleys, I think it is. Is that the name of it? Yeah, it was like less than $200, something like that.
Well,
I think you can actually get
right,
a motor.
I'm going to add insult to injury right here.
Go ahead.
So for $79 more, you could have got a motorized 4-framer.
Yeah.
So, so that's the, I knew right out of the way I was too lazy to spin all that honey out. So
yeah, I guess that's where I'm at. I'm not gonna, I bought that first extractor with the hot knives and everything for $800. Hot knives, smoker, everything the guy had for the most part. And he wanted a bunch more money, but he had a bunch of rotten boxes, and they were rotten. And then you seen these numbers engraved on the boxes. And I found out that's where he had American foul brood, and he had it back then. You radiated those boxes or whatever it was to kill that. And I'm like, all I can see is you got a bunch of firewood here, because I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. And then I talked to the bee inspector, and she said, don't use these frames, because you don't, because you're going to bring disease in. Because she said, that's what I did when I first started out as a young beekeeper. I bought a guy out. He had ABF, and then she had to fight ABF for so many seasons, And I was like, well, we're not going there. I'll buy new boxes and frames before I buy, why buy somebody else's diseased boxes? And it's like Lee said, buy once, cry once.
Well, I mean, and there's a way to do it. I mean, and we've had this discussion this week was, Charlie likes to equate everything on how many pounds of honey you have to sell to pay for something. And I take it a little bit step further than that. It is true. If you buy a $4,000 piece of equipment, you got to sell 400 pounds of honey to pay for it. However, I sell the honey up front, right? I sell 400 pounds of honey, and then I take that money and then I buy the equipment. So next time I do it, it's better. It's paid for itself. And, I don't go into debt for it. And, if I did, I would have the $33,000 extraction line sitting in my honey house. Everybody being like, what the hell did you get that thing for? You don't need that. You got to sell 3,300 pounds of honey, So it's
Well, I mean, for me to get into beekeeping, all right, I made an initial investment of, well, it was $800 there. I'll figure, let's just figure $1,000 for me to first start out and just to get into beekeeping. And you bought, you bought 2 hives, I bought 2 nukes, and that's how I started. And then I bought the guy out for $800. Now I had an extractor, and then I said, okay, I'll buy that little Uncoma capper thing. That was $25, which I still think is way overpriced, but anyway, I've upgraded. And like you say, most people try to build stuff on their own, so they can cut corners and save some money, and then and all that. So,
Oh yeah, just building bottom boards and migratory covers is extremely easy and saves a lot of money.
right.
I can.
That was like me and Bob were talking about, like Duck River. It was like we were talking about Duck River hunting. Nathan, I think his name, yeah, and he's got this 18-part series about commercial beekeeping and this and that and whatever. And I'm looking on, I'm like, why are you still looking at it or building equipment like a backyard beekeeper, like with me? I got individual bottom boards. I got, telescoping covers and inner covers and all that stuff. Whereas if you want to build a commercialized or a sideliner, I'll say more like commercial bee business, James McNally is the one to look at. He's the one that's doing the 2-way pallets where you don't have bottom boards. You got pallets, and then you got your boxes, and then you got your migratory lids, and you're done. And, you can buy the boxes and you can assemble them. You can build your own pallets because Brad came up with a design that everybody's using. Ian Stepler, that's Brad's pallets he's got up there. And then James has you can go on there and Brad's given the design out on a drawing, and they're building those pallets. And then they're, using, you can have a forklift for the tractor or, a honeybee Hummerbee or a load lifter or whatever. And that's how you move all that stuff around.
But it takes time to get to that level, but again, building.
Well, what I'm getting at is if that's your goal to go to that level, then stop buying the bottom boards and stuff at an early thing and save that money and build the 2-way pallets. It's like Megan Milbreath. She's out in the Midwest of the United States. And she said, if you're going to go to commercial, try to make that decision early on, because you're going to have a bunch of equipment here that not going to be able to use anymore. Inner covers and telecovers. When you got a pallet system, it's got to be the other style, the migratory lid.
Yeah, the only problem I have for pallets is I don't have the equipment to wax dip them. My wax dipping tank, it only fits the size of like slightly bigger than a super. And
that's one thing in your country. It seems to me that wax dipping is
the way to go.
Yeah. Well, it's maybe the way to go, but what I'm getting at is that you guys are really serious about wax dipping. That's sort of a new thing for us around here. Everything's just been.
Hey, Charlie, I'm going to get off of here. I got to get up well before daylight and head down to the farm. So
yeah, it's 11 o'clock, and I guess we better. I gotta run the show tomorrow too.
All right.
So time went away pretty quick tonight.
All right. Good night, fellas.
But it's a good night. I enjoyed it and all that. I'm going to go ahead and shut the broadcast down.
All right. Have a good
Everybody
night.
stay.
Goodbye, everyone.